control, number one. Number two, I think I did pretty well. I won the first round compared to the first round 2 years before, where I got 23.6%. Now, with our allies that have signed to join us, we're also the largest bloc in Parliament. And for a political movement or political party that is 10 months old, I think that's an incredible success.
Thank you for listening to The Interview on the BBC World Service. If you enjoyed today's programme, you can listen to The Interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts. Until the next time, bye for now.
That program came to us courtesy of the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello there, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube at 3 minutes to 6 a.m. on Friday. Thanks for joining us. It is the end of spring break. Well, you still got the weekend, and should be pretty decent out there. It's going to get nice next week for back to school. I hate to say that because, next week after Monday, we really do turn a corner and get a lot warmer. But today, at least for your Friday, we're going to be above zero in Winnipeg, a high of 3 degrees. 60% chance of flurries or maybe some more rain showers. Yesterday, that was kind of nice. Felt really like spring, I thought, when that rain was coming down. So we'll get a little bit more of that today. Let's say good morning to the team. Information Radio, the morning show is on until 8:37. If you need us on the commute, 788-3093. The person picking up that phone will be Chloe Friesen. Good morning, Chloe. Chloe's also directing the program this morning. Good morning to May McKillop, who is behind the controls of the show today and is filling in for Abby. And good morning to Mr. Kevin Nipatebo, the best YouTube producer you ever did meet. I love that, Kev. I saw that little sign you did there, waving to people. Kevin giving a special hello this morning. It's his last morning on the morning show with us for a while, so we'll enjoy our time with our friend here. It is time to turn to Lauren Donnelly. She's in for Heather Wells today and has your news headlines.
Good morning. Landlords aren't getting a break on their school taxes this year, and some say it could impact rent. And the residents of one Minnesotan community are closely watching the trade war between Canada and the U.S. We'll hear how the locals feel about the tariffs and Canada's response. That's all coming up.
All right. Thanks very much, Lauren.
You're welcome.
In the first hour of the program, we have a live guest who'll be in studio with us. We're going to be talking about why he created a burger that he's going to be donating proceeds to just for this month to a charitable organization. And it has to do with the tariffs. So we'll hear all about that. Also, in the first hour of the program, we're going to dig more deeply into the response to Trump's tariffs. We're going to check in on how it looks in terms of Liberal leader Mark Carney and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and what each of them has said about what our response should look like and what our response is. So stay tuned. That's coming up as well. Lots of politics going on right now. In addition, in this program this morning, not to politics, it's a show by kids for kids, and it's coming to Winnipeg. We're going to chat with the Mini Pops kids about their celebration tour. So many of us growing up with some version of Mini Pops. But first, World Report.
Today on Q.
I'm Garvey Bailey in for Tom Power. Bob Mould, the legendary punk rock innovator, is coming through. Bob will tell you why he's giving the people what they want on his new album, and he looks back on the legacy of Husker Du.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Financial markets in Asia and Europe continue to tumble after yesterday's turbulent day, all in reaction to U.S. President Donald Trump's worldwide tariff plan. It's fueling fears of a global recession. And CBC business reporter Scott Peterson has his eyes on the markets and joins us in studio. Scott, what are we seeing right now?
We're seeing a reflection of what happened in North America yesterday on the Asian, the European markets. They are heading to their worst weekly decline in 3 years. And this is following what we saw as a market meltdown yesterday of $2.5 trillion wiped out of the stock market. We're also seeing the fear index. This is a VIX index that traders use. It is that the markets are so uncertain. They haven't been this fearful since last August. So there's lots of confusion still in these markets. And just to reiterate what happened yesterday, we saw it's the worst TSX pullback in 3 years, the worst for the S&P 500 in 5 years. And so these markets are screaming out for clarity. And really, they're asking a fundamental question: are we going to see rising prices, a slowing economy, and that equates to stagflation? And that's what these markets are asking, and they're asking it basically at the top of their lungs.
Scott, you raised the specter of stagflation. So look into your crystal ball. What's ahead?
What's ahead is unlike, and I've followed markets for years, John. This is unlike anything that we've ever seen before. During the pandemic, during the recession of 2008, this is created by the White House, by one man, so it could change on any given day as well. And that's why there's so much uncertainty in these markets. Here's Peter Tuchman. He's an NYSE trader, and he's saying this about the White House.
It's unbelievable. They know nothing. The formula that they use for these numbers, trade deficit, it's like apples, oranges, a couple of cashews divided by 10 times 4. I mean, none of it makes any sense. And billions and trillions of dollars are being wiped out of the market.
So in the meantime, has the U.S. president anticipated this? Has he anticipated the pushback, the potential for rising unemployment, for a slowing economy? Does he have the stomach to continue with it? And yet more questions that these markets have.
Scott Peterson in studio. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, John.
Meanwhile, China is unleashing a new slew of tariffs and restrictions against U.S. goods, retaliation for the tariffs imposed by Trump on Wednesday. Beijing says it will impose additional tariffs of 34% on all American goods starting next week. It also is putting new controls on some rare earth exports to the United States. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly is meeting with her NATO counterparts in Belgium, and she's offering them her perspective on the tariffs.
The relationship with the U.S. will never be the same. They want to do things differently, and we understand that.
Canada's government is bracing for more tariffs on lumber, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductors in the days ahead. And yesterday it announced it would match what the U.S. is doing with auto sector tariffs and levy a fee on U.S.-made vehicles that are not compliant with the new NAFTA. But Canada is in a race to elect a prime minister, someone with a mandate to push back against U.S. President Donald Trump. And today, all the main party leaders are campaigning in Quebec, a key battleground with 78 seats. And last night, the leaders were grilled en français on a special Radio-Canada program, Sans Chefs. Rafi Boudjikanian has the details.
En parlant, 6.
Liberal leader Mark Carney grading himself a 6 out of 10 on his spoken French, promising to improve to a point.
Je viens d'Alberta.
I come from Alberta, he tells the Radio-Canada journalists interviewing him. I'm 60 years old. I can still learn.
8 à 9.
8 to 9 in 4 years.
Les Québécois, qu'est-ce qu'ils veulent?
But asked what he thinks represents Quebecers, he's less specific.
La gestion de l'offre, c'est une nation et c'est une société distincte.
Supply management, he says. Then adds, it's a nation, it's a distinct society. His Bloc Québécois rival Yves-François Blanchet picks up on that when he's in the hot seat.
Il y a plus personne.
Nobody calls Quebec a distinct society anymore, he says. It is its own nation, recognized in the House of Commons. The Bloc has repeatedly tried to capitalize on what it calls Carney's Quebec gaffes during this campaign. So far, the Liberals have remained ahead of the Sovereignist Party in voters' intentions. The 78 seats here key to the Grit's goal of forming majority government. Last night, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre may have also provided Blanchet some ammunition.
Il y a un membre de la GRC. Il a un turban.
Saying an RCMP officer assigned to protecting his family wears a turban, and he's against the controversial Law 21, which bans public sector workers in positions of authority from wearing religious symbols. The performances on Thursday evening by each leader, a preview of the campaign's French language debate in a little less than 2 weeks. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Montreal.
South Korea's embattled president is out of office. The country's constitutional court has upheld Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment. Protesters in Seoul erupt in cheers as they hear the judge's unanimous verdict. Yun was impeached by Parliament last December after trying to impose martial law. The move was met with intense resistance and plunged the nation into political turmoil. Yun released a statement after the court decision saying he was truly sorry for failing to live up to the people's expectations. South Korea must hold a snap election within 60 days to choose a new president. Well, it is one of the most contagious diseases and also one of the most preventable. But nearly 30 years after it was declared eliminated in Canada, public health authorities in Ontario are scrambling to contain an outbreak of measles. Jennifer Yoon reports.
I'm terrified of needles, which doesn't help.
Chenoa Asquith never got her measles shot as a kid, but now, as a 23-year-old, she's facing her fears at a pop-up clinic in Caledonia, Ontario, getting the vaccine.
And I just didn't want to end up with measles. It's either get the vaccine or end up really sick in the hospital with measles.
The region between Niagara and Windsor is the epicenter of the measles outbreak in Canada now. The province is reporting almost 90 new cases in the past week. Dr. Nin Tran is the medical officer at Southwestern Public Health.
It is known as one of the most contagious illnesses globally, and currently the most effective way to safely prevent measles is through vaccination.
But convincing those who are hesitant is hard. A reality Sarah Titmus, who helps run the pop-up vaccine clinic in Caledonia, knows too well.
I think the bottom line is that we all have our own values and beliefs. And so what we do is we provide the most evidence-based information that we can so that people can make an informed decision.
An effort crucial to curb the spread as Canada looks poised to break a record. There are over 700 cases already this year, 24 more, and it will be the biggest outbreak since the disease was declared eliminated back in 1998. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Caledonia, Ontario.
A Canadian held for 12 days by U.S. immigration says she feels lucky compared to many of the women she met in the holding cells. 35-year-old Jasmine Mooney was detained on March 3rd after trying to apply for a U.S. work visa at a Mexican border crossing.
From that moment on, no one told me anything. It was the same answer every single time. I begged, how long am I going to be in here for? Like, what is happening? And it was always the same answer. I don't know your case. I'm just doing my job.
Legal experts say Mooney's case is one example of how people are being treated at border crossings if they are not U.S. citizens. And in 1 week, many Canadians crossing the border will have to register with the U.S. government. It's a new rule that could affect a lot of snowbirds. But as Sophia Harris reports, it's being challenged in court.
We're like 60 to 80 years old. What are we going to do wrong in the United States?
David Fine is perplexed by the Trump administration's upcoming registration requirement for travelers. It affects Canadian snowbirds like Fine, who's wintering in Texas. Starting April 11th, certain foreign nationals staying in the U.S. for 30 days or longer, including many Canadians crossing by land, will have to fill out a lengthy registration form online. Those who don't comply could be fined, even imprisoned.
People right now are saying they're not coming back. And that shows you how upset we are.
But Fine was happy to hear that several U.S. immigration advocacy groups are suing the Trump administration to try to quash the registration requirement.
We feel strongly that this rule was issued in an improper and illegal way.
Michelle Lapointe is legal director at the American Immigration Council. She says the administration failed to seek the required public input on a rule that will affect millions of people.
Because they did not do that, what they're rolling out is a system that is arbitrary, it's confusing, it doesn't make sense.
On Tuesday, the plaintiffs will ask the court to block the registration rule before its April 11th rollout. The Department of Homeland Security didn't comment on the lawsuit, but defended the rule, saying it aligns with Trump's efforts to enhance the country's safety and security. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. It is Friday morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and this is Information Radio. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on that app and YouTube, on CBC. Thanks for joining us. All right. Are you grumbling about the spring weather? It's been a little bit chilly, right? It's going to get warmer throughout early next week. We'll have the forecast for you in a moment. I can tell you today's high in the city is right around 3 degrees. And we are expecting, though, a little bit more flurries, maybe even a little rain. We're going to talk tariffs this hour. I know you're not surprised, but, well, we have to in this historic moment, of course. So first of all, a day in the White House Rose Garden that shook the whole world. Global stock markets are in free fall. The numbers yesterday were terrible after U.S. President Donald Trump sweeping tariffs on most countries in the world. I think the list was over 180. I counted this morning. We're going to talk more about the implications of all of this. We're going to talk about Canada's response, and then we're going to talk about a tariff-free burger. And that's a local idea. So we're going to start our show there with that. And it has a charitable component as well. So we hope you stick around and stay tuned for the interview. Right now, though, let's go to Lauren Donnelly. She's live in our news center at 11 minutes past 6 with our headlines this morning.
Good morning. On that tariff front, a popular brand of kosher wine in Jewish celebrations will be off the Seder table of many Manitobans this Passover. Made in New York State, Manischewitz wine was pulled off the shelves at the province's liquor marts in March, along with all other American alcohol products. The wine has become a staple of the Jewish holiday. We'll hear how families are reacting. And Tourism Winnipeg has come up with a cheeky campaign to target visitors. The agency's vice president, Kathy Tarrant, says many Canadians won't leave the country this summer. The marketing agency wants to lure them to Winnipeg as Canada's lovable, sometimes overlooked middle child. We'll have those stories and more in your next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I like that. There's a lot of chatter around that, right? That whole middle child idea. I'm going to do the weather in a minute because, frankly, I'm going to wrap my head around it for another second. And Chloe Friesen's going to tell us about the commute.
Good morning. Good morning, Winnipeg, Manitoba, and you, of course, Marcy. Not too much happening on the commute this morning, but I do want to mention a closure. That's something that I actually was dealing with yesterday, and this is Archibald. Let me find my information here about Archibald. Look at us, Marcy. What a morning. What
That's
a morning.
all right. I'm ready to go with weather if you want to search Archibald.
You know what? I'm gonna search Archibald. I'm gonna find that for folks, and you. I found it, Marcy. Archibald closure. Mission to Provencher. Your southbound lanes are completely closed. Folks are rerouting onto Mission. I did this reroute yesterday after our remote broadcast yesterday. If you're heading northbound on Archibald, you're just reduced to one lane, so you can still make it through. Again, this is until April 23rd for sewer work. If you do see anything on your commute, any stalls or collisions, let us know. You can call our commuter line at 204-788-3093.
Thank you, Chloe. All right, so wrapping my head around the weather. This is more about broadcasting than you ever wanted to know, but the temperatures from Environment Canada always update at this awkward time. So sometimes when I start the show, I'm giving you actually like the overnight temperature. So I try to wait until I hit enter, but ta-da, there's the update. And after that, you can imagine it's anticlimactic. It is a -2 in Winnipeg. Woo! I waited for a degree. -2, mostly cloudy. Right now in Brandon, partly cloudy, -7. Thompson, you've got light snow. It's -12. In Winnipeg right now, we can tell you that our forecast will have a 60% chance of flurries or rain showers. As I mentioned, our high 3. A few clouds tonight, low down to -6. We'll see some sun tomorrow morning. Over in Brandon today, your high is 1 degree with clearing this morning. And up in Thompson, mix of sun and cloud, and your high -4. Well, as I mentioned, a local business is serving up something called a no-tariff burger with a portion of proceeds going to a charitable cause. St. James Burger and Chip Company owner Kevin Rambaran is in studio early to talk about it. Good morning.
Good morning.
What's a no-tariff burger?
Yeah, the no-tariff burger, I can't remember whether we call it the zero tariff or the no-tariff burger. I'm going to go with no-tariff burger. That's what you said. That's probably correct. It's early. What's on it? We're doing ketchup, Canadian ketchup. We're doing some lettuce, tomato, pickle. That's like your standard garden. And then we're doing a bacon-infused beef patty that we get our meat from a local butcher. We do Canadian pea meal bacon, also from a local butcher. Bothwell cheddar cheese, local company. Well, close to local, Manitoba. And then we're doing caramelized onions, honey Dijon mayo that we make in-house. It's beautiful.
How is this connected to charity?
Well, so every month we feature a new burger, and this month a couple of weeks ago, maybe about a month ago, the folks over at the United Firefighters of Winnipeg reached out to us and let us know about their 13th annual rooftop campout that's happening in support of Muscular Dystrophy Canada, and you probably have seen them if you drive down Osborne at any point in April. There's one weekend where they spend their nights and days camping out on the roof.
And then they put the boot down and up on the line.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a great event to support, and it's actually the first time we've supported this event with them. You know, we do lots of little local initiatives and things like that, but we love our firefighters, and this is a great cause that they wanted to throw some money behind. And so we thought, okay, well, why not tie this in with our burger of the month, since that is happening, I believe, on April 8th to the 10th.
Got it. So let's walk through the actual challenges here for you as a business owner.
Sure.
You're trying to make your burger. You're trying to make it all Canadian. So what's that like?
Yeah, it's amazing. I go to various places to pick up supplies for our restaurants in the morning, and lots of these, as you'll see, many suppliers and companies are now listing specifically, where your products are coming from and these things. I haven't looked at the news since I got up and got here this morning. I assume the tariffs are still not in place.
We're still where we're at yesterday.
Yeah, okay. We'll see how long that holds. The way this is going on, and also the volatility that it puts into the market has impacted everything. Whether it's like drink supply, like canned drinks moving their prices up because they're worried about an aluminum tariff versus just because where a product gets packaged is different than where it gets made, and really sourcing what specifically is Canadian and what isn't, and where a customer or then therefore our money is going can be hard to track. So we've been doing a lot of work to just kind of key in on what prices are going to stay the same and which products are going to allow our customers to still feel like they're supporting Canada and local businesses.
What's the most challenging when you go down your grocery list or where you're picking up items? Do you go, this is going to be really difficult should tariffs come, either back into play or continue?
Yeah, that's a great question. Surprisingly, a ton of produce and things like that can be sourced from various places that are not necessarily America, but there is certain things. It's funny. There isn't actually a huge because we get our bread baked locally, right? We're not shipping that in from somewhere because we get meat sourced locally. Luckily for us, burgers are a relatively
you can find the ingredients
exactly, right? They're a relatively easy thing to make within the country or within the confines of our borders. So I think probably some of the more unique sauces or something that I maybe wouldn't be able to make that is more branded specifically, shifting our ketchup, for example, from an American company to a Canadian supplier is just a standard shift. It's not something I want to do. I like the quality of the big American company that everybody loves and knows for ketchup, but they're American.
Yeah. What do you hear from customers? Are you getting that? Like, do people ask, or do they look for little Canadian flags, or are you hearing any of that yet?
Yeah, we've been pretty proudly supporting local for a long time, so I think people know that. Yeah, and so they when they show up to a small business like ours, it's less of a big deal. Like, a ton of our, I wouldn't call them explicitly competition, but a ton of the alternatives when you're looking for burgers, fries, things like that are very obviously American companies. And so I think like we recently made a big push to post about a bunch of local businesses, and it was in jest. We put out like a hip hop diss track to all the other burger shops in the city. But we intentionally made a point of listing every local company and not even the large American chains, which I understand are staffed by Canadian workers sometimes and Canadian employees. But for us, it's important that people understand that we kind of agree that you want to keep your elbows up when you're eating a burger.
I like that.
Thank you.
I like that. That was good. It was good. I don't know how long you thought about it, but it works. You're talking about other local companies, in the diss track that you made, you're kind of nodding to it.
Yeah.
How much do you actually keep in contact with other local companies or restaurants, or in terms of, because you've been local for so long, like that scene and what's the chatter sort of around?
Yeah, my brother and I, who own St. James Burger and Chipco together, Ravi, we keep in touch with a ton of local other restaurant owners and operators, and we kind of believe that you got to support each other and that there's a community. And I should say, when there are people who own franchises, chains, independent restaurants. We're friends with lots of people and lots of different elements of that. But
Are
because
people talking tariffs in the biz community locally here?
yeah, I mean, especially the alcohol suppliers
course.
during a lot of that, or the the people who operate bars and things. I should say, people who are using alcohol suppliers a lot more regularly than say I would be over at St. James. There's a lot of nervousness and discourse. It's our group chats can get a little political. They can get a little but I think people. The nice thing about it is that the local restaurant owners and operators that I know and speak with, at their core, we're all about trying to support each other's business. The idea of competition is not. Andy from the burger place, who's 2 minutes away from St. James Burger and Chip Co., selling a similar style of cuisine. He and I we're always poking fun at each other on April Fool's Day. We're always having a good time. And anytime a customer is telling me, I like your food, but I love Andy. I'm like, I love Andy too. He's great. And vice versa. I don't want to take. I believe there's enough hungry folks in the city for everybody.
Well, we'll be watching for the boot to come down to support muscular dystrophy and the firefighters. And obviously, people can check out the Zero Tariff Burger at your place. Thanks very much for coming in and being here early.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure.
That is Kevin Rambaran. He's a co-owner of St. James Burger and Chip Company.
Listen up to groundbreaking sounds. Listen up to new and emerging artists. Listen up to what's happening with your favorite musicians. Subscribe now to CBC Music's newsletter, Listen Up. Keep tabs on everything happening in music. News, exclusive live performances, the best new songs, and so much more. Subscribe now at cbc.ca/listen up.
It's 6:21 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you so much for joining us. Our team today, Kevin DiPatebo, Chloe Friesen, May McKillop behind the glass. -2 is the temperature in Winnipeg as we get into our Friday morning. Well, it is being called, as I said, a blow to the international economy. Global stock markets tumbled yesterday after U.S. President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs on all goods coming from the U.S., from countries all around the world. Here are some examples of what Trump has put in place. There's a 20% tariff on goods from the EU, all of them, a whopping 54% tariff tax on goods from China, and high taxes on smaller Asian, African, and Latin American countries as well. I started to count this morning. There's over 180 countries on this list. Colin Mang is with us, assistant professor of economics at McMaster University. Good morning.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So people might have been leaning into this. I know I was. But if you could just give us a really brief snapshot of sort of the range of global reaction to this, what are you seeing?
The range has been negative all across the world. You get comments, for example, from Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who called the tariffs fundamentally wrong, or French President Emmanuel Macron, who called the tariffs brutal and unfounded. He also suggested that France could stop making new investments in the United States as well. We're seeing negative reactions from China, from Japan, all over the world.
For the EU overall, in terms of what European countries have been saying, I mean, you already mentioned a few of these here, but what's your sense of the way forward? Or are we still just in this moment of maybe shock and reaction?
Yeah, so the EU, because the way that they operate is based on a consensus model among the member states. So to get their full plans for retaliation is still going to be probably a few weeks away. However, they are working on a plan of now reciprocal tariffs. I mean, what Donald Trump did this week is not exactly reciprocal tariffs in the way that we thought of having just tariffs that match other countries' tariffs. He went way overboard with some really ridiculously high numbers here. But you'll see stronger reactions from the Europeans. I mean, for the Europeans, they're facing a 20% tariff on their goods going into the United States now. And for the Europeans, because they have a large domestic market, this is really only going to reduce their economic growth by about 0.3%. It's not going to be a huge loss for them. But there is the symbolic aspect that America and Europe have been allies for many, many decades. And this kind of feels like, well, you're being stabbed in the back. So you can expect a pretty strong response from them.
Let's walk through some of the other countries. China and India.
Yeah, so for China, they're now facing a 54% tariff, and this is going to cut their exports to the United States probably in half. They're looking at losing about 1 to 2% of their economic growth this year as a result of the tariffs. So they're hit much harder than the Europeans are. China has already reacted with counter tariffs on U.S. goods, and China has also spent the past several years trying to diversify their trade, trying to do more trade with Europe, as well as investing in other Asian countries and investing in Central Asia and Africa to try to grow market access there. So China is trying to work around the Americans and trying to diversify their trade. You also asked about India.
I did, but I'm going to pause there because I think I actually should ask you first about some of the smaller, the hard-hit smaller countries like Asia and how tariffs are bound to affect their economies.
Oh, sure. I mean, we could talk about a country like Vietnam, for example. They're facing a 46% tariff, and this is actually going to be pretty devastating for Vietnam. They make a lot of what they export is footwear and clothing. For example, Nike, the shoe manufacturer, makes about a quarter of their shoes globally in Vietnam. But the thing is, I mean, it's low-skill work, and it could be done in any low-wage country. So what I think you're going to see is Vietnam losing some of this low-wage manufacturing to African countries. They're only facing a 10% tariff. So it's basically going to make Vietnam uncompetitive, and they're going to start losing manufacturing as a result.
Let's go to Canada actually next, because let's talk about their response here. So Canada and Mexico, we know were spared from this latest list, from the latest sweeping tariffs, but duties against aluminum and steel in the auto industry, 25%, all that's still in play. Prime Minister Mark Carney has said that Canada must diversify its markets at lightning speed. So which countries could we actually strike deals with in a short period of time?
Yeah, we actually already have a free trade agreement with Europe, and we have free trade agreements with many of the countries in Southeast Asia as well. So those agreements are already out there. The problem that we've had is that in both cases, they're an ocean away. Our largest export is energy products, oil and gas, and we don't have very good infrastructure going across the country to get Alberta and Saskatchewan oil and gas to the coasts. I think we're going to need to have a national debate about whether or not we want to improve that infrastructure to open up other markets. The second largest export that we have is automobiles. And right now, as long as the production is compliant with the Canada-US-Mexico agreement, the United States is still willing to honor that agreement and give tariff-free access to Canadian automobiles and parts. But anything that's not compliant is being hit with this 25% across-the-board auto tariff in the United States. And unfortunately, Europe and Asia, the next two biggest markets, already have their own auto sectors. The likelihood that we're going to be able to export to them is very small. There are some other options for us, though. I mean, when you look at our minerals, so steel, aluminum, which face tariffs in the United States, there's markets for those overseas. Things like nickel and lithium becoming very important for battery production as the world moves towards electric cars. There are large markets overseas. The only challenge is going to be the transportation costs. So given the higher transportation costs, we're probably going to get not quite as good a price for those as we would have gotten if we sold them to the United States.
And just last, I will go back and ask about India because it could have an impact on, I understand, some versions of medicine like pharmaceuticals, right?
Yeah. India, they primarily export services to the United States rather than goods, so they're not going to be hit very much by this 20% tariff that Trump is putting on India. But one of the big goods that India does export is generic medicines. About 50% of the generic medicines consumed in the United States come from India. So this is going to add to the increased healthcare costs in the United States. They already have the highest healthcare costs in the world, and this is actually just going to make them worse.
All right, Colin, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
We'll have you back on for a few hours, maybe 6 hours, and we can go through the whole list of countries or something.
All right.
It's astonishing. More than 180. Colin Mang, assistant professor in the economics at McMaster University. Chloe Friesen's come in and sat back down. I'm thinking that's because you have some traffic to tell us about.
I am going to once again mention Archibald here. So Archibald, from Mission to Provencher, you are dealing with some sewer work that is blocking some lanes. So if you are traveling southbound, completely closed on Archibald from Mission to Provencher. You're rerouting onto Mission. I did this reroute yesterday. Takes a bit longer, but it gets you where you need to go. Northbound, you reduce down to just one lane. This is until April 23rd for sewer work. And I did notice yesterday that it was causing some backed up traffic. So just a reminder about that. And of course, if there's anything else getting in your way, any stalls or collisions, something happening on a active transportation route, let us know what you're seeing. 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you, Chloe Friesen. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC on 89.3 FM, as we've been mentioning, 990 AM on the app, or maybe you're watching on YouTube this morning. So wherever you're joining us, thank you. Last day of spring break, not going to be particularly thrilling out there. Mostly cloudy, still staying a little bit on the chilly side. Business news is coming up. Crystal Ramlakan always joins us right after our 6:30 news, so we'll check in with her on the day's markets and other stories. But right now, Lauren Donnelly standing by in your CBC Manitoba News Centre.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Lauren Donnelly in Winnipeg at 6:30. It's -2 and mostly cloudy at the Winnipeg airport. A 60% chance of flurries or rain showers early this morning, clearing later with a high of +3. Landlords are warning of higher rents after their education property tax bills for this year doubled. They used to get a 50% rebate on their school taxes, but this year the province is only offering a tax break for homeowners, nothing for landlords. Avram Sharak is with an association representing landlords. He says expenses are rising faster than Manitoba's 1.7% cap on rate increases. He plans to apply next year for rate hikes higher than the government's cap.
The only choice we have as property managers is to continually apply for these increases above the guideline because we're always catching up.
Finance Minister Adrian Sala maintained the government is helping small businesses. Some of the measures include a freeze on electricity rates and upcoming changes to the payroll tax. While they may not all agree on the issue of tariffs, but the 100 or so year-round residents of Northwest Angle, Minnesota, are closely watching the trade war between Canada and the U.S. Surrounded on three sides by Canada, cut off from the U.S. mainland by Lake of the Woods, the only way to get to the Angle by road is through Manitoba. Everything has to be brought in. Kelly Knight runs Prothero's Post Resort. She's worried the price of everything will go up, but she supports Canada's attempt to fight back.
I am very supportive of what Canadians and other countries are doing, and I think that the Americans need to feel the pain, like we honestly do. Like we need to be woken up to, and I'm willing to, like make it hurt a little bit so that we understand that this is not how you play nice. This is not how you cultivate good relationships.
Other local residents say they're happy to see U.S. President Donald Trump following through on his promises to make America wealthy again. A popular brand of kosher wine in Jewish celebrations will be off the Seder table of many Manitobans this Passover. Made in New York State, Manishevitz's wine was pulled off the shelves at the province's liquor marts in March, along with all other American alcohol products in response to U.S. tariffs. The wine has become a staple of the Jewish holiday, but Winnipeg Rabbi Alan Finkel says there are substitutes available.
We still get to honor it. We're not breaking any laws, Jewish dietary laws, or the way of keeping kosher for Passover. If we were told we couldn't have matzah, it would be a different story, because we cannot have leaven. We can't have leavened bread. So this falls into the category of tradition rather than of serious ritual observance.
The Jewish Federation of Winnipeg asked Manitoba to bring back Manishevitz's wine for the holiday, but Premier Wab Kinew said no carve-outs will be made. PC leadership candidate Wally Dowdrich has asked a court to restore his permits to operate tundra vehicles during polar bear season. CBC's Bartley Kives reports.
Wally Dowdrich owns Lazy Bear Expeditions, an ecotourism company based in Churchill. In February, Manitoba's wildlife branch told him he's no longer permitted to operate 2 tundra vehicles in the Churchill Wildlife Management Area. The branch said declining polar bear numbers led to the decision. So Dowdrich filed an application with the Court of King's Bench asking for the decision to be reversed. In an affidavit, Dowdrich says he wasn't notified in advance, challenged the science behind the decision, and accused the wildlife branch of being more lenient on 2 competing ecotourism companies. Those companies and the province declined comment. Bartley Kives, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Finally, the Jets came back in a big way last night in Vegas, and redemption after Tuesday's loss to LA could not have been sweeter. Mark Scheifele started the scoring off with this in the first period.
Alex Iafallo has Scheifele towards the net, and a score! Mark Scheifele buries it on that far
Adam Lowry, Colin Miller, and Cole Perfetti also scored, and backup goaltender Eric Comrie had his second shutout in 2 months, bringing Winnipeg a 4-0 victory over the Knights. The team is now one away from breaking the franchise record of 52 wins. They play Utah on Saturday. And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg.
All right, thanks very much, Lauren.
You're welcome, Marcy.
Lauren Donnelly in our news center this morning, filling in for Heather Wells. Well, let's get into our regional forecast now from CBC. We got a couple more days of chilly temperatures across Manitoba, and then into early next week, things will start to turn. I should say mid next week is really when things start to turn, just in time for back to school. It'll make it warm on your lunch hour at least. Let's start today, though. High of just 3 degrees in Winnipeg, mainly cloudy, chance of flurries or rain showers this morning, a good chance. Tonight, a few clouds, low -6. Tomorrow, some sunshine for your Saturday and a high of 2 degrees. Into Sunday, 0. Monday, sunny, 0. A little taste of Tuesday, 6 degrees, and then better from there. So hopefully that holds. Right now in Winnipeg, -2. Over in Brandon, your high today is 1 degree, and you'll have a pretty straight ahead day. You're going to have light winds and just 1 degree. It's going to be clearing this morning even. Tonight, though, a few clouds moving back in, low -13. In Brandon tomorrow, mix of sun and cloud and a high of 3 degrees. And then you're very similar to Winnipeg, where you go from there. You get warmer into next week. On Tuesday, you could be sunny and 4 degrees, and even better Wednesday. And finally, up in Thompson, sun and cloud today. You have a 60% chance of flurries, high -4. Tonight, that chance of flurries stays with you in Thompson and a low -15. And then into tomorrow in Thompson, a mix of sun and cloud and a high of -3 for you on Saturday. Looking ahead for Thompson, you're also sort of under this trend of what's going to be changing. So early next week, sunny on Monday for Thompson, high -3. And if all this holds, we'll be above 0 by Tuesday and into Wednesday as well. Wednesday's high in Thompson could be 9. So I know that's far out, but I can't resist on a Friday, giving us a little bit of warmer hope on the horizon. All right, at 6:36, Chloe's back. She's here with more traffic.
Hello, good morning. I'm so excited for that warmth to fully melt the sidewalks. That's what I've been eager for, because I've been using it as an excuse to go for less walks, because you don't want to slip around. But now
everyone knows now.
So. Now, no more excuses. More walks. Other than that, not too much happening on the commute. I haven't heard from anyone on the commuter line quite yet. I'll remind folks, Archibald from Mission to Provencher, your southbound lanes are completely closed. You will be rerouted onto Mission. Northbound, you're reduced to 1 lane, so that'll slow traffic down in that area. This is until April 23rd. If you spot any collisions, any stalls, or anything interesting out there that you feel your fellow commuter should know about, let us know. Call our commuter line at 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Chloe. Next, it's time for business news with Crystalie Ramlakan, who's here via Zoom with our report. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
Let's start with global stock markets. They're reeling after U.S. President Donald Trump's latest round of tariffs. Can you break down what's going on for us?
Yeah, so there has been a worldwide sell-off. So stock markets in Canada and the U.S. plunged yesterday as investors reacted to the latest tariffs. And the S&P 500 suffered its largest one-day loss in value since the pandemic hit in 2020. And portfolio managers say the news was worse than people expected. They say tariffs would be very negative for global growth if they stay in effect. And markets are worried the tariffs could sink the global economy into a recession. So south of the border, trillions of dollars of value were wiped out in a matter of hours. And Canada, as we know, has been spared in the latest tariffs. But the European Union is facing a new 20% tariff, and there is a 34% levy on imports from China. And major tech stocks led the way down as companies like Apple stand to be affected by tariffs on countries like China. Of course, that company makes some of its products there. And even gold, which has been hitting highs as investors seek a safe haven, was down.
How are industries reacting to the tariffs?
So, automaker Stellantis is shutting down its assembly plant in Windsor, Ontario for 2 weeks, largely because of U.S. tariffs on imported vehicles. And the union says about 3,200 people will be impacted at the factory that makes the Chrysler Pacifica minivan, the Chrysler Grand Caravan, and the Dodge Charger Daytona. And Stellantis has also paused production in Mexico and has laid off workers in the U.S. And Canadian apparel companies, including Aritzia and Lululemon, saw their stock prices slide yesterday. So Aritzia was the biggest loser on the TSX, with shares down more than 20%, while Lululemon shares were down almost 10% on the NASDAQ, and Gildan shares were down almost 10% as well on the TSX. And so, like I was saying, while Canada has been left out of these latest tariffs, of course, it still faces duties on a variety of its goods, including auto and steel and aluminum. So Canada is striking back with counter tariffs on American vehicles shipped for sale into Canada that are not compliant with the CUSMA trade agreement. So the duties will hike costs on Canadian importers and consumers, but Mark Carney says the revenue would be poured back into supports for the thousands of workers hit by tariffs.
And we have some interesting stories coming up later this morning around people's decisions and what they're doing. So we're going to talk to a Manitoba couple. They had a dream to build a winter home in Arizona. They did, but now they are selling it. We also are going to hear from an American today. This will be interesting. This is a farmer in North Dakota saying they're struggling financially because of the U.S. tariffs. So we're going to talk to him as well coming up on Information Radio. Right now, though, before we look at the numbers this morning, what is Trump saying about TikTok? Because just I'm realizing that deadline's also looming for them to, it to divest or be banned, right?
Yeah, that's right. So Trump says he would consider a deal if China agrees to approve the sale of the video app in exchange for relief from U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports. So you can kind of see how his brain is working here. China is facing a 54% tariff on goods imported into the U.S. And speaking to reporters, Trump used TikTok as an example of how tariffs could be used to negotiate with other countries. So he says the U.S. could use tariffs in order to get something in return. And TikTok faces that deadline of tomorrow to reach a deal to find a non-Chinese buyer. U.S. officials have raised security concerns over the app's ties to China, which TikTok and its owner ByteDance have denied. And Trump says his administration is very close to reaching a deal with multiple investors involved. And yesterday, Vice President J.D. Vance said a decision will come before tomorrow's deadline. And as we talked about yesterday, or I'm not sure if we mentioned it or not yesterday, but Amazon and a consortium led by the founder of OnlyFans are interested in buying the app. But the White House press secretary said yesterday, Trump reserves the right to an extension to get a deal done if necessary. So I guess they're covering themselves there. But you know what, Marcy? Now we are hearing that China will impose additional tariffs of 34% on all U.S. goods starting April 10th. So some countermeasures announced this morning. And Beijing also announced controls on exports of some rare earth metals.
Every 2 minutes, something changes. Right?
There's a lot of changing news for sure.
I don't have to tell you, you're at the business desk. You started with markets, Crystal Lee. What else what do you want to share about the numbers today?
So in Europe, stocks are falling. Germany, the UK, and France are all down. In Asia, markets are extending their declines. So Japan, Shanghai, and Hong Kong are all down. Oil is down $5.32 to $61.64 US per barrel. Gold is up $3.60 to $3,118.30 US per ounce. And the dollar is down almost a third of a cent to 70.6 cents US.
All right, Crystal Lee, have a great weekend. Thank you so much.
You too. Thanks, Marcy.
That's Crystal Lee Ramlakan at our business desk. There it is. The sound of spring. It always makes you so hopeful. But then do you ever look at the geese and think, how do they know? How do they always know when to come back? Michael Antles, chronobiologist at University of Calgary, he studies biological clocks of birds and geese, and he's here to explain how they know how it's time to migrate.
This process actually starts way back last summer. When the days start getting shorter after the solstice, that tells them, you got to start getting ready to migrate south. And so they start bulking up, getting all their flight feathers on, getting done with all the breeding stuff that they've got to do. and then they head south. But when they go south, then of course the days, depending on how far south the birds go, the days don't change, right? It's a 12-12 cycle when you get near the equator. And that's where the clock comes in. It's a little bit like an hourglass that starts ticking way back in the summer, and then it tells them, oh, if you want to be back in time for spring, you got to start leaving now. You think of it like an hourglass. And so the birds are measuring how long the night is, and the nights start getting longer right after the first day of summer. They start getting incrementally longer, a little bit by bit, and it's melatonin in their brain that measures the length of the night. So in the summer, there's not a lot of melatonin because the nights are very short. And as the melatonin levels start getting longer, because the nights get longer, that triggers the physiology changes, so they start getting ready. If they waited until it was cold to start getting ready for migration, they wouldn't have enough time to get ready. So they've got to start planning ahead a couple months. And then the same thing, that clock, which started way back in the summer, around February or March, tells them, it's time to head back home. The scientist who worked this out was William Rowan, and he worked at the University of Alberta way back in 1920, 1930. And he did the very first studies on photoperiodism in the whole world. And so it was his pioneering work that did this. And he did it by capturing birds and keeping them in his backyard in Edmonton. And as the days were getting shorter, he turned on electric light in his backyard to make it seem to them like their days were getting longer. What he found is that when they had the long days, the simulated days, they actually had breeding plumage, they were singing, they were confused. They thought it was spring, even though all the cold temperatures were there. So that was the study that told us it's not temperature, it's the photoperiod.
Super interesting, hey? So that is Michael Antle, a chronobiologist at the University of Calgary, explaining how geese know when it's time to migrate back to places like where we live, Canada. It is 6:46 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. or on the app and YouTube. It's -2 in Winnipeg, and here's new music for Winnipeg's Field Guide.
Woke up with the daylight after a good day and a long night. I'm tired, but it's alright. I'm living again. Loading up the rental and trying to be gentle with my sister on the telephone. She's feeling down again. I got the life that I want. I'll have some time in August. You're out of my sight, but you're sure on my mind. I promise. I just missed the pool hour, so I settled for a hot shower. Single cigarette and a happy hour all to myself. Tomorrow hit the highway, Denver, then an airplane, Calgary, then a time change, and I'll be back at home with you. I got the life that I wanted. I'll have some time in
Field guide life that I wanted, a little tune about what it's like to be on the road and touring and traveling town to town.
The rise of digital music has changed the rules of the game.
Who's in charge of what we listen to when we don't choose it for ourselves?
Find out who benefits, who gets to pick the winners and the losers.
The market has become really flooded with so much new music.
Take a closer look at what's really going on in today's music industry. Watch the new documentary, Big Music, on CBC News Explore. Stream free on CBC Gem and CBC News app.
If you are watching this morning on YouTube, our program, wow, what a beautiful sky we've got as the sun is just cracking that light coming through that low-lying cloud. So final weekday of spring break today. Hopefully you've got some special plans maybe, or maybe you're just going to chill out and relax before school's back in on Monday. Well, coming up on the program, I want to mention something that's not tariff related. In the next hour of the program, we're going to chat with an emerging fashion designer and a youth leader whose clothing designs are going to hit their runway tonight at Graffiti Art Gallery with a serious twist that is also a social comment on what it's like to be a young person who happens to be in care, or a young person who happens to be without a permanent home and moving around. All of these fashions are made out of garbage bags. So we're going to hear more about the poignant, how obviously that's poignant, but we're also going to hear more about how beautiful some of these designs are, as well as part of the show. So that's going to be a good conversation coming up in the next hour of the program. Looking forward to it. Right now, though, let's return to talking tariffs, but this time the political aspect of things. This is what Prime Minister Mark Carney had to say yesterday, responding to Trump's tariffs.
Canada is ready to take a leadership role in building a coalition of like-minded countries who share our values. We believe in international cooperation. We believe in the free and open exchange of goods, services, and ideas. And if the United States no longer wants to lead, Canada will.
The trade war is, of course, happening in the middle of our federal election. For a closer look at the political implications, Marco Vellotti is with us, editor-in-chief of iPolitics. Good morning to you.
Hey.
So let's start with Liberal leader Mark Carney returning to Ottawa to respond to the tariffs and then, of course, officially responding as Prime Minister. But we heard a little bit of the response. How is what Carney has been saying and how he's been handling this been going over so far?
Yeah, so we know that the Premier seemed to be on board. Doug Ford spoke to reporters after talking to Carney and other premiers. And for the first time, I think in quite some time, he seemed to be comfortable kind of ceding some of the floor when it comes to retaliation to Mark Carney and the Liberals. And then, of course, Daniel Smith, who's been kind of, offside with some of the other premiers on how to respond to Trump, also said Carney's plan had her full support. So definitely interesting. So what Carney's proposing is a 25% tariff on all U.S.-made autos that don't fall under the Continental Free Trade Deal. This is what Donald Trump's proposing or has put in place, and Carney's proposing that any funds generated from these tariffs will go to supporting, auto workers who potentially lose their jobs. So, and also he did mention, that we can't count anymore on a kind of seamless economic partnership with the U.S. and we have to look elsewhere. It's not terribly dissimilar to what he's been saying for the past few weeks, but the fact that he's saying that Canada needs to take a leadership role in developing that new alliance, that new partnership, certainly something new.
I just want to add for our local audience here as well, I saw Premier Rob Canoe speaking yesterday after the Premier's meeting with the Prime Minister, and he was saying, he was asked a question actually about unity, about where the Premiers are at and whether that division is still sort of something, if he could ever imagine Western provinces sort of looking at making a break or what that looks like, and he just really responded with more unity, saying that the majority of the premiers, are on board with moving in one direction together as a united Canada. So I'm paraphrasing slightly there, but I was watching his responses. I wonder, before we turn to what Pierre Poilievre had to say, how much of with Trump going slightly easier than expected on Canada and Mexico than we thought might happen on tariffs, how much is that being seen in your view as a win for Carney?
It's interesting. I think immediately after that first phone call they had and Donald Trump put out the statement where, it's kind of comical to think of it, this is a win, but where he called him Prime Minister and didn't make any kind of 51st state comment. I think it was seen as, Carney's drawing or respect from Donald Trump. That being said, I just feel like yesterday no one wanted to take ownership, whether it's Mark Carney or any of the premiers,
wanted to kind of spike the football and say, hey, we avoided the additional tariffs. There was definitely the sense that, yeah, it could have been much worse, but still pretty bad. We are still dealing with, I think, what Mark Carney's called unjustified tariffs from the U.S., and no one will be happy until those are completely removed. So no one wants to take any credit for this. Everyone still says, hey, we're in an uncertain situation, but the tariffs that are in place are damaging to industries like the auto sector and like steel and aluminum producers.
Pierre Poilievre obviously is saying that no credit is deserved. He's saying if he becomes prime minister, he's going to remove the federal sales tax on Canadian-made automobiles as long as the Trump tariff's in effect, at least. What reaction is that getting?
Yeah, so it's not a terribly controversial move on the part of Pierre Poilievre. The Conservatives announcing this comes a week after Jagmeet Singh, the NDP leader, proposed something similar. And we know that global automakers, for example, have called for a removal of the federal luxury sales tax on vehicles. So, I think everyone's on board. I think there's a lot of support in the auto sector to get rid of these sales taxes. But, at a certain level, we have to deal with the reality, and that is we're a small domestic market compared to the U.S. We're a tenth of the size. And anything that will, of course, cut costs would probably, increase sales here. But, it won't be enough to make up for the loss of, American sales of Canadian vehicles. So although maybe, people are generally supportive, I think there's acknowledgement that it's not necessarily going to, have a huge impact in terms of softening the blow from these tariffs.
What did Poilievre say about, the Conservative leader say about how he would negotiate with Trump as he would frame it, if and when he becomes prime minister? What stood out from what he said there?
So I think it was really interesting in that it was the first time I can remember him talking at length where the Liberals weren't the sole focus of his attacks. A lot of it was on, dealing with Donald Trump, what he would do, but also acknowledging that Donald Trump's an unpredictable and volatile leader, and he can say one thing and do the next in short order, and acknowledging too that, hey, we have to remain united when we're dealing with this, that we have one Canadian economy, and anything Donald Trump does that impacts it is going to have ripple effects. He also shot back, I guess, some suggestions that, from conservative circles, that if Carney wins, there's going to be a Western secession crisis, and he signaled too that we have to stay united. This is not something that we should use as a way to divide this country, which is a stark contrast to some of the really aggressive messaging he's been taking, or positioning he's been taking around the Liberals. So I don't know if this is sort of a pivot away from aggressively attacking the Liberals and focusing on Donald Trump, but certainly had the germs of it yesterday.
All right, Marco, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Marco Vellotti, editor-in-chief of iPolitics. By the way, in our local coverage here in Manitoba, you might have heard the morning show was live yesterday in the riding of Elmwood-Transcona. We're going to be out live every week. I think we've got 5 of them in total, morning after election. We have some plans for election night. But leading up to the day, we're different ridings where we are looking at sort of how the race has gone before and where things could be tight within some of the City of Winnipeg ridings that we can get to at the show. So next Thursday, we're going to be live in Winnipeg West. This has been renamed. This was Headingley, Assiniboia, Charleswood, that part of the city, and into, of course, into Headingley. So that is Winnipeg West now, and so we are going to be doing a live show at the Tim Hortons on Grant. And so it is a little bit far ways up Grant. We'll get you that exact address next week as we are heading through and planning. But if you vote in that area and you want to join us, obviously we'll have you join us. But if you want to call, if you're already thinking this Friday morning, oh, you know what, I am concerned about X, Y, or Z, I have a question for a candidate, you can always call our listener line anytime. It's 204-788-3205. It's one number off my desk phone. Every once in a while on a Friday, I'll give my desk line, which is okay too. You can call me. Let's go to Lauren Donnelly. She's in our news center this morning with developing headlines.
Good morning. PC leadership candidate Wally Dowdridge has asked a court to restore his permits to operate tundra vehicles during polar bear season. Manitoba's wildlife branch told him his ecotourism company in Churchill is no longer able to drive the vehicles in a wildlife area. And Winnipeggers are on board with a cheeky campaign to target visitors to the province. With a U.S. trade war underway, many people are planning on staying close to home this summer. Tourism Winnipeg has rebranded Manitoba as Canada's middle child. We'll hear more about the response. That's coming up after World Reports.
High +3. Right now it is -2 in Winnipeg. Mainly cloudy, chance of flurries this morning, and traffic is moving fine. Coming up in the next hour of the show, we're going to get a tour of the new multi-million-dollar Southeast Events Center in Steinbach from a former Olympian. We're also going to hear why she wants to show it off. So stay tuned. We'll get you out there. In addition, using fashion to raise awareness about Manitoba's child welfare system. We'll learn how a group of teens came together to design dresses, as I mentioned, made out of garbage bags for a big fashion show that's coming up tonight, in fact. And then at 10 to 8, an interesting conversation I'm looking forward to with a farmer in North Dakota who says they're struggling. And farmers there overall are saying they're struggling financially because of the U.S. tariffs. So we're going to talk about the tariffs and how they could be detrimental to the future of agriculture and what that relationship looks like on the south side. Stay with us. World Report's next on CBC.
Today on The Current.
People are feeling beaten up, unappreciated, and it feels like we're looked at as the deplorables.
We're in Red Deer, Alberta for the next stop in our election roadshow. We'll hear from people in the oil and gas sector and beyond about who they're voting for and why, what the rest of Canada doesn't get about Alberta. That's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. It's looking like another turbulent day on the financial markets. Already, exchanges in Asia and Europe are continuing their slides from yesterday. This is all in reaction to U.S. President Donald Trump's worldwide tariff plan, fueling fears of a global recession. CBC's business reporter Scott Peterson is following all of this and joins us in studio. Scott, trading around the world and here on the futures markets, what are we seeing today?
We're seeing another big sell-off. The Dow Jones now, last I looked, is now over another 1,000 points to the downside. So clearly we have not seen a bottom in this market. And almost it's to the point where it's no value to talk about numbers. But we lost $2.5 trillion on equity values alone yesterday. So these markets are really crying out for clarity. They're not getting clarity, and they're asking the big questions. Are we heading to a recession? Are we in an environment of rising prices? If that's the case, that's stagflation, where you've got a slowing economy, a stalled economy, and rising prices, and that's a worst-case scenario for economists out there. Big banks as well. JP Morgan, for example, now predicting there's a 60% chance of a recession going forward. And unlike the financial collapse that we saw in 2008, the global pandemic, of course, this is all the cause of one man in the White House, Donald Trump. And so the markets have never seen anything like this before.
So, Scott, in the midst of all this, what are we expecting going forward?
Well, this is the big question mark. More financial analysts are just scratching their heads saying they don't know what's going on. They're questioning how in touch the White House is with the reality of the markets. And Jim Cramer from CNBC calling the Rose Garden announcement on Wednesday Bush League.
Over and over again, the president said, listen, it's going to be reciprocal. So you do it, we do it. And that was going to be so good. And I really believed in it. And I feel like a sucker because I am not a free trader and I do not believe in free trade. And I was just as tough, if not tougher than his people, but they screwed it up.
So as a result, we're seeing more countries, China, for example, imposing their own tariffs. And so get ready. We're going to hear more about tariffs and retaliations and tariff wars going forward.
Scott Peterson joining us in studio. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, John.
Scott mentioned China. It is unleashing a new slew of tariffs and restrictions against U.S. goods, retaliation for the tariffs imposed by Trump on Wednesday. Beijing says it will impose additional tariffs of 34% on all American goods starting next week. It also is putting new controls on some rare earth exports to the United States. And Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly says Canada's relationship with the United States will never be the same.
They want to do things differently. We understand that. And that's why we will seek to make sure that we get to an agreement on trade, but also on security, because both cannot be siloed.
Joly is meeting with her NATO counterparts today in Brussels, while her Liberal Party leader, Mark Carney, is back on the campaign trail. He and the other main leaders are all campaigning in Quebec this morning after being interviewed in French on a special Radio-Canada program. Kate McKenna was up late watching it, and she joins us from our parliamentary bureau. So, Kate, tariffs and the U.S. president have loomed large over this campaign so far. How do they factor into the interviews last night?
U.S. President Donald Trump and his threats against Canada emerged as the biggest issue. Liberal leader Mark Carney says he can't rule out the possibility of a recession, in part because of the effects Trump's tariffs will have on the U.S. economy. But he said he's already had some success with the president. After the two leaders spoke, Trump stopped making reference to Canada being the 51st state, and they agreed to negotiate a new economic and security relationship after the election. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was asked why he hasn't spoken as much on Trump, and he gave a strong response, saying he won't apologize for focusing on the cost of living and people who are having trouble making ends meet. He reiterated his plan to get more energy projects built to make Canada's economy strong and less reliant on the United States. Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet said the Liberal and Conservative parties do not have their bases in Quebec, and he called for a Quebec representative to be included in the negotiating team with the United States. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh said the focus must be on protecting Canadian workers who have lost their job or are at risk of losing their job. And Green Party co-leader Jonathan Pedneau pitched his idea of creating national stocks of Canadian resources like aluminum and steel that could be used to build prefabricated housing.
Now, Kate, there have been some questions about Mark Carney's French. Last night, a big test. How did he do?
Well, he was asked to give himself a grade for his French, and he said 6 out of 10, but said if he's elected, he'll keep working on it. He stumbled in French at times, using English words occasionally, but he was able to get his message across. He may have a harder time in the French language debate later in the campaign, where opponents are likely to take a more aggressive approach.
Kate McKenna in Ottawa. Thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
Meanwhile, representatives from more than 200 Canadian companies are in Germany, hoping to forge new relationships with European partners. This week, Germany hosting one of the world's largest industrial trade fairs. Briar Stewart reports.
At a sprawling trade fair in Hanover, Germany, technology and innovation are front and center. But the talk of tariffs hangs over it all.
I don't think we'll ever replace our economic relationship with the United States, but the problems over the last couple of months really showed the urgency, but also the opportunity to find new markets.
That's Jason Myers, the CEO of NGen, a Canadian nonprofit focused on growing the advanced manufacturing industry. He's part of a group of 1,600 Canadians in Hanover, where Canada is in the spotlight as the partner nation for the trade fair. It comes as the EU is looking to shore up its ties to new markets after the U.S. introduced a 20% across-the-board tariff on its products.
Maybe ending in a disaster for the U.S. economy and then also for the world economy.
Hartmut Raun is the Deputy Executive Director of Germany's Mechanical Engineering Industry Association.
Canada and Europe could develop a good partnership. We were quite happy that there was a strong increase by more and more exhibitors from Canada.
One of those business people is Brad Sparkman. His company uses robots to apply paint, and more than half of his business has been the U.S. automotive industry.
I get a little emotional. It's been absolutely overwhelming to see the response and the reception we're getting as Canadian companies by the European markets.
And the businesses hope those warm conversations will translate into actual trade. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Hanover, Germany.
South Korea's constitutional court has upheld the president's impeachment. The Chief Justice says Yoon Suk-yeol violated his duty by imposing martial law last December. The move plunged South Korea into political chaos. As the CBC's Murray Brewster reports from South Korea, there's fear the court ruling will deepen the political divide in one of the region's more vibrant democracies.
Today is a very, very important and good day for Korean democracy.
Sihung Mayor Lim Byun-tak speaking through a translator, a member of the Democratic Party of Korea. He's happy to see the country's conservative president ousted by the top court. Now, former President Yoon Suk-yeol's short-lived imposition of martial law last December was deemed a violation of the rights of the people by South Korea's constitutional court. It was a case watched closely throughout the region and the globe because of fears Yoon was trying to ram through a hardline agenda. Lim Byun-tak says he thinks there's now consensus in this country to limit presidential power.
I believe that although we have experienced political turmoil, Korea has been able to quickly overcome the current hardship.
Across South Korea, thousands of police were bracing for possible violence after the court ruling among pro- and anti-impeachment protesters. It's been noisy, but peaceful. Former Canadian diplomat James Trottier says Canada, with its strategic partnership with Korea, should be breathing a sigh of relief that things are no longer in limbo.
South Korea's political chaos had basically left a major global economy and a key U.S. and Western ally rudderless at a very fraught moment.
Elections for a new president in this country are expected in early June. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Incheon, South Korea.
And finally, a Canadian held for 12 days by U.S. immigration says she feels lucky compared to many of the women she met in the holding cells. 35-year-old Jasmine Mooney was detained on March 3rd after trying to apply for a U.S. work visa at a Mexican border crossing.
From that moment on, no one told me anything. It was the same answer every single time. I begged, how long am I going to be in here for? Like, what is happening? And it was always the same answer. I don't know your case. I'm just doing my job.
Legal experts say Mooney's case is one example of how people are being treated at border crossings if they are not U.S. citizens. Well, that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Well, if you're enjoying the World Report podcast, and we hope you are, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps spread the word. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday. It's -2 in Winnipeg. Cold spot in this province is Tuduli Lake at -16. The warm spot Sprague at -1. We have another straight ahead spring day in Winnipeg. My name is Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. You're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and YouTube. This hour on the program, farmers in North Dakota say they're struggling financially because of U.S. tariffs. We're going to talk to one who says those tariffs could be detrimental to the future of agriculture and get the view from the other side of the border, which will be an interesting conversation live at 10 to 8. In addition, using fashion to raise awareness about Manitoba's child welfare system. We're going to learn how a group of teens came together, and tonight they're going to show off their dresses that are made out of garbage bags. This is a big fashion show tonight. We'll talk about the statement they're making and what we should understand. And we're going to get a tour of the new multi-million-dollar Southeast Events Center in the city of Steinbach today. So that's straight ahead. Right now, let's go to headlines with Lauren Donnelly.
Good morning. Landlords aren't getting a break on their school taxes this year. Last year, every residential property owner got a 50% rebate. Now that's gone and replaced with a credit, but landlords aren't eligible. Now some say they'll be forced to raise rents. And people in a Minnesotan community of about 100 residents are keeping an eye on the Canada-U.S. trade war. Northwest Angle is surrounded on 3 sides by Canada and cut off from the U.S. mainland by Lake of the Woods. The only way through by road is through Manitoba. We'll hear more from CBC's Karen Pauls on what residents make of Trump's tariffs and Canada's response. That's coming up at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Lauren.
You're welcome.
Winnipeg still at -2 or mostly cloudy. Brandon partly cloudy, -7. Thompson light snow falling and -12. Today in the city of Winnipeg, a 60% chance of flurries that could turn to rain showers early this morning, and then it'll clear a little later. Kevin's got that map up, and you can see that clearing is going to be coming. A high of 3 degrees in Winnipeg is what we're expecting today. Tonight, low -6. And for your weekend, mainly sunny on Saturday. We'll still be above 0, but not much. And then by next week, mid-next week, all of Manitoba actually gets a lot warmer. Right now, let's check the icy morning commute with Chloe Friesen.
Good morning. Yeah, it's icy out there, but Marcy, I have decided that it's spring now. I'm going for ice cream later today.
Ooh, good.
And I'm just gonna make spring happen with that activity.
What's your flavor? Are you a hard cone? Or are you soft serve?
Ooh,
what's your jam?
It depends where I go.
Okay.
I do love a sundae with peanut butter and hot fudge.
Ooh.
That's my go-to.
Okay, the peanut butter gets clumpy though, or is it thinned out so it's like a sauce?
I think it's saucy. It's saucy. I like it.
I might have to go with you.
Join me.
Yeah.
Join me.
That sounds good.
Spring is here, whether it feels like it or not. Yes. Turning to your commute, no major issues out there on the roads. I haven't heard anything yet on the commuter line, but I'll remind folks, Archibald from Mission to Provencher is closed. If you're heading southbound, the lanes are closed totally at Mission, so you're rerouted onto Mission. Northbound, you're reduced down to one lane, so you can still get through, but it is a slower spot in your morning commute. This is until April 23rd. So if that is part of your daily commute, you might want to just find a way around it until then. Of course, if you do spot anything out there, let me know. 204-788-3093.
Well, the city of Steinbach, as I alluded to, does have a new multi-purpose event center, and it's turning heads across the province. The Southeast Event Center is a multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art facility. It's going to be home to the MJHL Steinbach Pistons. It's a massive 112,000 square foot arena. It can house 4,000 people for concerts and 2,400 for hockey games. CBC's Jim Agapito got a tour with a very special Steinbacher and former Olympian Michelle Sawatsky-Koop, who was eager to show it off.
We're getting a tour of the Southeast Event Center. It's Steinbach's brand new state-of-the-art $75 million event center and home to their beloved Steinbach Pistons. Let's check it out.
Welcome to the Southeast Event Center.
You are?
I'm Michelle Sawatsky-Koop, and I'm Director of Communications, Marketing, and Sales here at the center. Right now we have the atrium and the arena bowl ready to go, and it's turned out to be such a cup half full because our community walked into this building and they did exactly what we thought they would do. They were understanding of us learning the space, and we've learned it together. And we're going to keep opening it as we go. Everyone is just like, we can just hardly wait to see the next part and the next part and how it's going to serve our community and actually beyond our community. And we're so excited to welcome people from outside of Steinbach because I think it's about time people really get to know what Steinbach's like. And it's a pretty cool place to be.
Michelle, will you show me around?
I would love to show you around. There's so much to see.
Okay, take
ready
me.
to go?
I am ready.
Let's go up. Well, so first of all, as you look around the atrium, a neat little feature, these incredible lights are shaped like an arena. So the companies that have put their hard work into this are actually from southeastern Manitoba.
It's a community.
It's a community project. We didn't do it because we could and make it look so fancy just because we wanted it to be, but we think our community deserves a world-class venue and to share that with all of Manitoba and Canada and even beyond someday. So yeah, anyway, it's amazing. This is what you walk in to see.
Oh, wow.
So take it all in. A beautiful big mezzanine, which has been packed for the last 3 Pistons games, but didn't feel like sardines in a can. It's so well thought out. Lots of accessible seating. And then as you walk in, there's 2 huge screens on the ends, 42 by 15 feet. We're pretty proud of that.
It's not only just for sports, correct?
That is absolutely right. So the Steinbach Pistons are our main tenant. They rent the space from us. They have a home here, but this place wasn't built for the Pistons. They make it possible for us with 29 guaranteed regular games. They're exciting, they're revenue building. So all the revenue that comes in goes right back into this building. So we can have concerts. You're gonna see trade shows here, RV shows, craft sales. We already have a banquet coming up, and we can feed up to, I think, 900 plus on the arena bowl floor. Around round tables. So this space is going to be utilized for so much. We're dreaming about graduations. The sky's the limit.
The event center was $75 million. How was this funded to build this place?
Well, first of all, the provincial and federal governments pitched in $17.5 million. And our city really stepped up. The city of Steinbach has been waiting for this. $32 million from our city, and we're really grateful to them for that. And then the private and business sector of this community donated $25.5 million. That's how much was raised to make this $75 million project happen. And that truly speaks to how this is a community center. Before this place was our Centennial Arena, and we owe it the utmost respect because it served our community for so long, but it was an old barn with not even a regulation size ice surface. So we had that, and the T.G. Smith Arena is actually still here and connected to this facility, so it's a part of our event center, and we're excited about that. But really, for coming together, even like for meetings and that kind of thing, there just wasn't what we needed. There just wasn't a lot. And so I think that's why the dream was held onto for so long and has been so anticipated. We're excited about the new gymnasium that's going to be opening soon. And the buzz in the community for the walking track is incredible. It goes right around the gymnasium. And there's an indoor playground for 2 to 8-year-olds, free.
Playground.
Absolutely. It's going to have an 8-foot climbing wall. It's going to be 2 levels of a play structure that's free for the community. We want this to truly be a place where people can come with no barriers, and that's our goal. And now let me show you something really special, Jim.
Okay.
This is the Steinbach Pistons dressing room.
Wow.
What? Modeled after some of the nicest dressing rooms in the NHL. And as you can see, it's just an incredible, it's a showpiece. I think it shows the pride of the community in our Steinbach Pistons.
With a facility like this, you must be able to attract players that want to play for the Pistons.
Well, you know what? It's already such a classy organization. Everyone who works with the Steinbach Pistons already has made it a great organization. And now we have a facility to house it and even to make it more special. Well, you better believe recruiting trips are going to be stopping right here. I was born in Steinbach, grew up here, went away to play my volleyball and my sport, then came back to the community, and I spent so many years in local radio and celebrating the community and all that it was doing. And now to take that to the next step and be able to bring community together, it's just a continuation, I feel, of what I was blessed enough to do for almost 30 years. And now I get to do it in this incredible center. And I've already seen what it's done. There are people who have come here, not for the hockey. They came here because they wanted to see the center. Now they kind of love the hockey, you know? Or they're gonna come here and see that gym and play with their friends and watch their kids play volleyball, basketball. They're gonna play pickleball here. They're gonna walk around the track at -40 and feel great about it. And they're gonna realize that this center is for all of us.
Steinbach hopes this new event center becomes a gemstone activity for their community. In Steinbach, Jim Agapito, CBC News.
You got to watch the video of this, to be really honest with you. I know they did their best to describe this facility, but when they got into that dressing room, it really is of Jets level. I mean, we're talking individual spotlights colored in blue over each and every individual locker, and then lots of space for the players, nameplates, beautiful carpet, open space, and it looks like kind of a leatherette places for the individual players to sit. Like, it really is swish. 7:20 is the time right now. We've been visiting the Southeast Event Center. It looks massive, beautiful, a really nice thing for the city of Steinbach. Michelle Sawatsky-Koop, fun fact, she mentioned their volleyball. And if you're from Manitoba and you're from Steinbach, certainly you're going to know this. She represented Canada in the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta for volleyball. And another fun fact, who was in the newsroom in Steinbach covering that story, especially trying to reach out to locals who were playing there when the bombing happened during those games? It was me, calling Michelle Sawatsky-Koop. And then we both actually were hosting morning radio out in Steinbach in those early days. So I wrote her a note last year. She just retired from those early hours, and she's found a home doing communications for the event center. So you can check out that video online, and obviously in the city of Steinbach, they'll be opening it in phases.
I met her as the partner of the famous singer-songwriter. We were both outsiders, and I think that was the start of what became a kind of friendship. 'Cause we were never lovers, we were drawn together. She was wise and she was witty, she was proud and she was pretty. I knew that he just saw himself reflected in her beauty, and the light of his desire flickered like a fire in a mirror. And I know that she was wise to the limelight and the lies and those peacocks with their feathers and their fists. I called her the lightning rod, and she called me the empathist. She said, you just might be civilized, 'cause you were raised by women, so you got an inkling how the other half's been living. And she winked at me with one eye, smiled with the other, but she held me out at arm's length, called me little brother, and in the space between, was a lifetime of dreams in those fairy tales some men can't resist. She was the patron saint of troubadours, and I was the empathist. Years go by, and the scales fall from our eyes as we roll and rise on the wind. All that I have been, all the stories in between, take me back to where I began. The last time I saw her, she was living in a trailer. Her kid had gone to college, and her cheeks a little paler. And we sat up all night talking of the joy and the sorrow. We were both a little lonely, here today and gone tomorrow. And I know that we tried between the taro and the wine to find a whisper of kismet in a kiss. She always drew the empress, and I was drawn the empathist.
This is Stephen Fearing. It's from his 16th studio album as a solo artist. It's called The Empathist, the title track. There's some great lines in that song. He said, she winked at me with one eye and smiled at me with the other, and Chloe and I found ourselves trying to do this. But what magical writing on a Friday morning. It is -2 and mostly cloudy in Winnipeg, and our high today is going to be 3. We do have a chance of flurries or rain showers in the city of Winnipeg, so that'll be with us again today. Well, let's talk hockey with Scott Regehr, who joins us now at 7:25 a.m. with Morning Sports on CBC. Hello to you.
Also trying to wink and smile with the other eye, and the contortions of the face necessary are too much for a Friday morning for me.
It's kind of fun, though.
Yeah, it is. I'll try it again tonight.
Let's talk about just smiling. It was really something last night, an impressive win by the Winnipeg Jets.
For sure, especially when you have the likes of the Dallas Stars, Marcy, creeping up on them for the division lead. A 4-0 shutout for Winnipeg against recent Cup champs Vegas. And this came after, remember, that lackluster loss in the game previously against the Kings. And this is a trend we've seen from the Jets all season long. Bad losses followed up by impressive wins. Captain Adam Lowry chalks it up to messaging from the head coach Scott Arniel, who has been preaching process over results. And that does seem to be working. The victory ties the franchise record for wins in a season. Not to be lost in all of this, the goalie of record in the shutout last night, that being backup Eric Comrie, who wasn't initially thought to be playing on this road trip since he and his wife are expecting their second child soon.
My wife's due any day, so yeah. I was trying to see if I was playing tonight or not. I have no idea if I was playing or not tonight because she can give birth any second, so I'd be on a plane back. My phone's on loud every single night right now. I've been looking at flights to get home just in case it happens, so I'm prepared if I have to go home. Yeah, it could be any day now.
How was he concentrating on hockey last night and getting a shutout? Are you kidding me?
I don't know.
That's impressive. As a dad of 3, that's very impressive. Winnipeg with a chance to set a new high water mark for wins tomorrow night in Utah, whether Eric Comrie's with them. He doesn't even know. It'd be nice for his wife to know, though, I imagine.
Yeah, I bet it would. Let's stay with hockey. A record thought once to be unbreakable. We're still watching, and now it could be broken tonight.
Yeah, Alex Ovechkin, Marcy, in a position to surpass Wayne Gretzky for most goals in an NHL career. To do it, he would need a hat trick, But I wouldn't bet against that happening. He's going to be playing in front of his home fans in Washington with Gretzky himself in attendance, and his opponent is Chicago with the second leakiest defense in the entire league. So spare a thought, Marcy, for Spencer Knight tonight. That's the goalie expected to face Ovechkin. Former Canucks keeper Kirk McLean knows what Knight's up against. He was, McLean, in net 31 years ago when Gretzky set his mark.
I mean, there was a bunch of games leading up to it, and he didn't do it. You're kind of hoping it's going to happen against somebody else. But, if it was going to happen, why not be a part of history? The main focus for me was not necessarily letting that happen, but winning the game, which we did. And sometimes I rib him. I say, listen, Wayne, you got a little selfish there, stopping the game and, having this big production.
McLean joking about how the game was halted for half an hour while Gretzky was feted, including by the player that he surpassed. That's Gordie Howe, of course. At the time, it really did seem like an unbreakable feat, but here we are, and incredibly enough, should Ovechkin get his hat-trick tonight, he will have broken it in one fewer game. Not everyone will be celebrating if he does, though. Ovechkin is a close friend of Vladimir Putin's and for years has had a cozy picture of he and the Russian leader as his profile picture on Instagram.
So Ovechkin and Gretzky are both marred, actually, by politics to me.
Yes, indeed.
Right
yes,
now?
indeed. Yeah.
Let's turn to curling before you go this morning. It's a big night in curling. Canada and the U.S. are going to battle at the World Championships in Moose Jaw today, I should say. What are you expecting from this?
Not a bunch of fights a few seconds in, the way we saw between the countries at last month's Four Nations hockey face-off. Canadian lead Ben Hebert says they get along too well with Corey Dropkin's American rink. They play against them all the time. There's also the politeness of Saskatchewanians. At other U.S. games, fans in Moose Jaw have not been booing the Star-Spangled Banner. Ben Hebert, the team's lead, says there's plenty of anticipation still ahead of the match.
Friday night sold out. A couple of my buddies hit me up for tickets, and they said it was sold out, so I told them they're SOL. That's all I know. So I'm pumped. I can't wait. Play in front of a sold-out barn here in Moose Jaw. I mean, it's been pretty amazing all week, to be honest with you. Even like the morning games we've been playing, this has been certainly the best Worlds I've ever played in, and to be able to do it at home, man, super special for me. Crowd's amazing. We've been playing great, so it makes it that much better.
Canada versus the U.S. tonight at 8 o'clock.
All right. Thanks a lot, Scott. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning, I'm Lauren Donnelly in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's -3. Mostly cloudy at the Winnipeg airport. 60% chance of flurries or rain showers early this morning, clearing with a high of +3. The 100 or so year-round residents of Northwest Angle, Minnesota, are closely watching the trade war between Canada and the U.S. and President Donald Trump's repeated comments about making Canada the 51st state. As Karen Pauls explains, they have a lot at stake.
Here's your Northwest Angle radio news for the week.
Joe Lauren runs the local online radio station in Northwest Angle, Minnesota. A fishing community, it's the only part of the United States outside of Alaska that's north of the 49th parallel.
We wanted tourists to be able to know what's going on for the week. We have no politics.
But the Angle's very existence is political. Surrounded on three sides by Canada, cut off from the U.S. mainland by Lake of the Woods, the only way to get here by road is through Manitoba. Everything has to be brought in, even power from Manitoba Hydro. So Lauren is watching the trade war between Canada and the U.S. closely. He says people in his circles have traditionally been against tariffs.
You don't want to kind of be penalized or taxed on stuff that you want to buy.
But then they heard Canada has had tariffs on agricultural products like meat and dairy.
Why is that? I don't think it's real transparent to the average person who's never really used the word tariff until this last month.
Lauren says politicians from both countries should be locked in a room until they come to a win-win agreement. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Northwest Angle, Minnesota.
A staple wine in Jewish holidays has been caught in the U.S.-Canada trade war. Made in New York State, Manischewitz's kosher drink was removed from Manitoba's liquor marts in March, one of the American alcohol products pulled from the shelves in response to U.S. tariffs. But for Laura Marjovsky and many other Jewish families, the popular wine brand has become a Passover tradition.
We will definitely have to look for something that will replace that Manischewitz wine. It could be grape juice, it could be kosher for Passover wine, but it can be missed.
Premier Wapkanu says there will be no exemptions to bring the brand back for the moment. Passover begins on April 12th. Global markets continue to fall in the wake of Donald Trump's worldwide tariffs. South Korea, India, Australia, and Japan are seeing declines today. Tokyo's benchmark Nikkei index has plunged by more than 4%. Market jitters persist in Europe as well. London's FTSE and Frankfurt's DAX are both down in early trading. The declines are fueled by concern the Trump tariffs will create a global recession. Landlords here in Manitoba aren't getting a break on their school taxes this year. Last year, every residential property owner got a 50% rebate. Now that's gone and replaced with a credit, but landlords aren't eligible. 1 year ago, the finance minister said the government would help the small business landlords with their taxes, but nothing has materialized. Garrett Wong runs a property management company. He says landlords are increasingly thinking of selling because of all the rising costs, school taxes included.
What we're seeing is people telling us they're getting out because they can't afford it. That's a difference. The difference between liquidating because you have a nest egg and an emergency fund in the rental property versus I can't afford to do this anymore.
Finance Minister Adrian Sala says the government is helping small businesses through other means like a freeze on electricity rates and upcoming changes to the payroll tax. PC leadership candidate Wally Dowdridge has asked a court to restore his permits to operate tundra vehicles during polar bear season. Dowdridge owns Lazy Bear Expeditions, an ecotourism company in Churchill. In February, Manitoba's wildlife branch told him he's no longer permitted to operate 2 tundra vehicles in the Churchill Wildlife Management Area. In an application with the Court of King's Bench, Dowdridge asked for the decision to be reversed. He says he wasn't notified in advance and challenged the science behind the decision. The province declined comment. Finally, Tourism Winnipeg wants visitors to think of this city as a middle child. The marketing agency is launching a new campaign to target Canadians who won't leave the country this summer. It will try to lure them here with a new message revealed on social media this week. Julia Schroeder likes what she saw.
This Canada's middle child, I think, is funny and it's engaging, and hopefully people will just come and visit and see what all of the beautiful things we have here to offer in Winnipeg are.
Tourism Winnipeg says this city is often overlooked for Toronto, Vancouver, or Calgary. Canada's middle child ads will run in Saskatchewan, Alberta, and northwestern Ontario starting in May. That is your CBC News from Winnipeg.
So, Lauren Donnelly, it's the last day of spring break. There's still the weekend, but got me thinking about spring break memories. I don't know. Did you spend spring breaks in any particular way when you were growing up, or was it just chill out time? Or
yeah, good question. I don't really remember, but you know what? I do fondly remember racing toothpicks in the melting puddles in the little.
Oh, fun! Yeah,
yeah, but because the ice is still there and there's walls of ice, and so you could kind of race toothpicks alongside. Yeah, that's what I did in springtime in Winnipeg.
Chloe Friesen's raced into the studio, so to the studio. So clearly you have something to add here.
I did this with Polly Pockets.
Oh, funny!
And especially if they had if they weren't fully plastic and they had the fake hair,
you stuck them in the
they
puddles.
would float.
Nice.
And then we would lose them occasionally in the sewer drains.
Oh,
and
no.
we'd be so sad because we couldn't catch up because the street we lived on flowed down.
Oh no.
And it was just the most exciting thing, and it was a good sign of spring.
My spring break, which ended in tragedy though, because your Polly Pocket went down the sewer.
It was sad, yeah.
My memories around food and actually the States. We used to go to the States every single spring break growing up. And part of that was my mother didn't like to fly. So anywhere we could go, we had to drive. So we went lots of the States. We'd go with another family. It was our annual trip. It was so exciting. And I had that dad that would just be like, we're on vacation. You can eat whatever you want. So I remember we would go, this is so silly, but we'd go to Perkins and I'd always have this silly thing called fancy pants.
What was that?
What is fancy pants?
Well, it's so funny because now I prefer kind of more of a savory breakfast, but this was like waffles and whipped cream and strawberries and strawberry sauce. It was basically like if you're eating a sundae for breakfast, and it was crazy. But I remember we would be there, and on the way there, I would be screaming, "Fancy pants!" Such a dumb name and dumb memory. But my dad would be like, "Yes, kids, have what you want. It's spring break." So,
Wow. Next time I have waffles with whipped cream, guess what I'm calling it?
I know it. Okay, you got to record your kid, Lauren, because you got a little one saying fancy pants.
Okay, we'll work on that.
That'll make my heart sing.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's get into what the temperature is going to be like for this last day of spring break if you are out and about with the family. It's me.
You were looking at me and I was like, I don't know what these numbers are.
I'm like, I'm looking at someone to do this.
You're thinking about fancy
but
pants.
Guess what?
And that's okay.
Abby's off, so this is me. Okay, regional forecast time from me at CBC Manitoba here. So let's start with Winnipeg. A high of 3 degrees, mainly cloudy, chance of flurries today. Could turn to some rain showers this morning. It's going to be very similar to yesterday. Tonight's low -6. Tomorrow, Winnipeg, mainly sunny, a high of 2 degrees. And then throughout the rest of our weekend on Sunday, we're looking for a mix of sun and cloud and a high of 0. Into next week, then, hopefully by Tuesday, we'll turn a corner and be well above 0 for the remainder of the week. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. Over in Brandon today, a high of 1 degree, and you're going to have a pretty straight ahead day, just 1 degree. Few clouds tonight, low -13. Tomorrow, sun and cloud, high 3. And also in Brandon, by mid next week, you look to be much warmer. And so does Thompson. You could hit 9 by next Wednesday. Not so much today. In Thompson, light snow falling now. It's -12 for you. Mix of sun and cloud, 60% chance of flurries, and a high of -4. Tonight, partly cloudy with a chance of flurries continuing up in Thompson, the low -15 degrees. And then into tomorrow for Thompson, you are expecting for Saturday some cloud cover by tomorrow night. And tomorrow night's low goes down to -15. And then on Sunday, you'll be in around -6. So the whole province, though, does seem to take this warmer turn by mid next week. Right now, we will go to Chloe for our commute.
Hello. And I do want to shout out the parents and the kiddos who spent their spring breaks at some sort of sports tournament, because I know that was a huge thing in my youth when I played volleyball. Spring break was not a vacation. It was time to travel to some sort of tournament. So shout out to all the parents that made those travels and the kiddos that were playing sports. Always a fun spring break activity. Turning to the commute here, not too much going on. Haven't got any calls to the commuter line. It's likely because it's the last day of spring break. There isn't a lot of traffic out there, or at least there is less traffic out there. So if you do spot something, you can always call us. I will remind folks about Archibald. There's that closure from Mission to Provencher. Southbound lanes are totally closed. You are rerouted onto Mission. Northbound, you're reduced down to 1 lane, so a bit of slower traffic, but you can still make your way through. And this is until April 23rd. If you have anything to add, if you're noticing any stalls, collisions, or just something interesting out there that you want to let your fellow commuters know about, you can call us at 204-788-3093.
Thank you, Chloe. Well, next on the show, some young Manitobans will be showing off their latest fashion designs in the inner city to raise awareness about kids in care at an event tonight. The fashion show features outfits made entirely from garbage bags. It symbolizes the struggle and resilience of the young people we're about to talk to and talk about that are involved in this event tonight. So it's called Voices Garbage Bag Fashion Show. It's being put on in a collaboration with the Graffiti Art Gallery and Voices. That's Manitoba's Youth in Care Network. We're joined by Erin Marr from Voices on the line via Zoom actually this morning with us. Hi there, Erin.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. And Taylor Sokolowski is just setting up with us via Zoom. I'm hoping that you're ready to roll there now. Taylor, how are you this morning?
Yes, I am. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for joining us. So why don't we start with you, Erin? Just tell us a little bit about this and what people can expect to see and how Voices is connected.
Sure, absolutely. So like you said, my name is Erin Maher, and I'm the manager over at Voices, the Manitoba Youth in Care Network. And we have been working in collaboration with the Graffiti Art Gallery to bring awareness to the issues that children in and from care face, and how their belongings, sometimes when they get moved, they're moved in garbage bags. So we wanted to change the narrative to let's make something tragic into something beautiful.
So let's talk about that, Taylor, because you're one of the young designers whose designs will be showcased tonight. Tell us a little bit about the dress that you designed. What does it look like?
My dress has flowers all over the front, and I have made a shawl that will go over the back, and it has some painting on the back for a black light. The inspiration for my dress was a dress that I'd gotten from a foster parent, and it was actually the first piece of clothing that I had ever gotten. So it has a sentimental value to me, And I'm just kind of glad that I'm able to showcase that and to show others how good we can make something out of stuff that we kind of move in.
I heard that you still have that dress. How many years have you had it?
I think I've had it for at least maybe 6 years now, 7.
Why have you kept it? You know, you talked about it having sentimental value to you. What did it mean to you to receive that?
It was the first thing that a foster parent had ever bought for me. So just to receive it felt really good and felt that I was wanted, because no foster parent has ever bought me anything. And to finally get something like that really meant a lot.
We heard Aaron talking about sort of why garbage bags, you know, that often you're moving belongings or kids in care can be find themselves moving belongings around in garbage bags and such. What's the significance of garbage bags to you?
In the beginning, when I would be moved around in garbage bags, I always felt like I was trash, because that's what you use garbage bags for. But now that I've found out about this, because this is the first year that I'm doing this with Voices, it's really nice, and it feels like garbage bags just aren't garbage bags. They're just not meant for garbage only. Like, they can be made out of things, so it feels nice to be able to do the dress and see how it comes out.
Were you thinking about that as you were sort of, you know, I don't know if you would rip the material for the garbage bags or cut it? I imagine making the dress must have been pretty challenging.
It was at first. There were some challenges, but as I kind of started going along, getting into it and learning from the designer, things started to go along well. I started to understand things, and it became really easy.
So you had some guidance from a designer that helped you out with this in addition to what you brought to the table with your vision?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you think it's going to feel like to see it, you know, worn on the runway tonight?
I feel happy. I feel excited. I can't wait for this to come. I barely got any sleep last night. I was too excited.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Aaron, there's quite a few models that are going to be wearing, I alluded to this, that are going to be wearing the creations tonight. Can you name a few that our listeners can expect to see hit the runway if they check it out?
Sure. We have the Honorable Minister Bernadette Smith is going to be wearing one of the designs. We also have Ace Burpee coming onto the runway, and many more. And many more.
Who's wearing who's wearing Taylor's dress? Do we know that?
Her name is Marie Christian, and she tried on the dress the other day, and it looks fabulous. I'm so excited.
Aaron, what do you hope that folks might take away from this event? And maybe there's 2 levels, right? Because there's going to be the beauty, and I suspect. You know, as Taylor said about being excited and what she'll be thinking about tonight, I'm mindful that it really depends who you are, you know, what you'll take away from tonight, you know. But what are you thinking about, and you hoping that people in the room will get out of this?
Well, it's really to showcase that we are not garbage. You know, the children in care are not garbage, and we need to bring that awareness to the public that this is still happening. It has continued to happen where children are moved in garbage bags, even from way back when I was in care. And it continues to this day. So we are hoping to foster some change in that.
Taylor, who is going to be, supporting you tonight? Do you have friends or family that are coming with you, or others that have been involved in this that are going to be excited to see your dress go up on stage?
I do have family coming along. There will be my mom, my sister, and 2 cousins of mine. And possibly I'm hoping the foster parents that have gifted me the dress.
Oh, that's amazing. Have you kept in touch with them over the years? You said it was 6 years ago you got the dress, so I'm just curious.
We've kept in touch for somewhat, but not a lot.
Did they know what that dress meant to you before, you know, this all came up? And obviously now they know, but
Not sure. I mean, I told them that I was basing the dress off of the dress that they got me. And they said that they would try.
Yeah.
They'd think about it.
Just very special, all of this. Tickets still available, Erin? How do people go?
It's free admission as long as you bring a tin for the bin, so we can support our the food bank that the Graffiti Art Gallery support is in partnership with. And I just want to say the Graffiti Art Gallery team has been incredibly helpful during this whole process. So supportive. Like I can't thank them enough.
So 7 to 10 o'clock tonight. Both of you enjoy it. Thank you so much for being up early on your special day, especially since you didn't sleep much for the excitement, Taylor. I hope you have a wonderful evening tonight. Thank you both.
Thank you. So much.
That is Taylor Sokolowski, emerging fashion designer and a youth leader, and Erin Marr from Voices, Manitoba's Youth and Care Network. So that show tonight at Graffiti Art Gallery, it's at 109 Higgins if you want to check it out. And as was mentioned, admission is free, so you don't need to reserve a place with a ticket of any kind, but they do ask you bring a donation of a non-perishable food item.
Hi, I'm Matea Roach, and I have a new show on CBC. It's called Bookends. Every week, authors from Canada and around the world will join me to discuss their latest books. We'll have best-selling authors and rising stars. Our conversations will be smart and surprising, because when the book ends, the conversation begins.
Bookends with Matea Roach premieres Sunday afternoon at 1:30 in Newfoundland, 3 Pacific, and on demand on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Rob Norman.
I'm Andrew Norton.
And on Personal Best, we help you tackle the stuff you'd be too embarrassed to ask an attractive, successful life coach about.
We have a slightly different approach to self-improvement.
Which is, we don't know what we're doing.
Definitely somebody following me.
She's holding a sword.
This is so nuts.
But in the end, it always works. Okay, it sometimes works.
You have no idea. This makes me...
Personal Best, Season 3. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.
11 minutes to 8 on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. High of 3 degrees in Winnipeg today. Chance of flurries or rain showers early this morning before it clears. Right now it is mostly cloudy and it's -2 currently. Coming up after 8 o'clock on the program, the political situation in the United States has led a Manitoba couple to put their Arizona winter home in a gated community up for sale this week. They say that other Canadians there are also following suit. They're going to join us after 8. Also to something much brighter and lighter. It's a show by kids and for kids, and it's coming to Winnipeg. Still ahead, we're going to chat with Mini Pop Kids about their celebration tour, so stay tuned. That is coming up. Feels like Friday item. Coming up for you after 8 o'clock. Right now, though, we are continuing to talk about the impact of tariffs. Yesterday, President Donald Trump announced a new list of tariffs. The list includes more than 180 countries. Canada and Mexico were not on this list. However, Canada's retaliatory tariffs are still in place. And I shouldn't say yesterday, earlier this week. We have talked to so many businesses and people and organizations that will be impacted, and that does include local farmers who are especially concerned about retaliatory tariffs and about China, Chinese tariffs that are going to be on Canadian products here. But we thought this morning we would go down south and talk to one of our neighbors, an American farmer. Bob Kalin is vice president of the North Dakota Farmers Union. He says these tariffs could be detrimental to the future of agriculture, and he joins us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing down south with all the tariff situation? What's the impact going to be like?
It's kind of scary. Just him talking about it for the last month. Our wheat prices have been down 90 cents a bushel, and corn and soybeans over 50 cents a bushel down. So it's had impact before he's even done it, and we just wish he wouldn't be fighting with food all the time, and we should be eating well instead of fighting with our food with all our friends and neighbors to the north and the south of us especially.
You have quite an example that's a really concrete example, I think, for listeners about if you wanted to take something about how the steel tariff could affect you between Canada and the States and how much money that would mean for you. Can you outline that for us?
Well, in North Dakota, we farm a lot like you do in Canada. We do a lot of no-till farming, and our friends to the north have some great no-till drills. And if you buy one for $1 million, and you go up to get it to come across the border, you'd have to put out another 25% for the tariff for the steel. So you would be adding another $250,000 to your drill to get it across the border. And that's a heck of a hit.
So tariffs obviously are going to be a big issue for you. On top of that, I know you guys have been facing some drought. Is that right?
We got some rain for the first time last night, measurable rain in a long time. So we've been missing it. It's really dry down here. We didn't even know if we were going to have enough moisture for the seed to come up if we put it in.
For context here, Bob, what's the average age of a farmer in the States? Like, is facing this kind of a crisis at this stage of their life?
Well, the biggest thing is it's 60 years old. And that's a point I want to get across. If we don't do something in agriculture in the next 10 years to make it better for people to be able to farm, we're going to lose control of our food systems to corporate America, who will tell you how much you're going to pay for your food.
Are you already seeing farms close? That's also quite a big stat, I understand.
Yeah, foreclosures are up 50%. It's not good because us guys who are in our 60s already, we have just about everything paid for, and we're not making any money. The people who have a huge debt load, and they're taking the huge hits now, and it's not looking good.
How are Trump's tariffs on China and Mexico affecting farmers out where you are?
Well, 50% of our soybeans go to China. Mexico, and between Mexico and China, 50% of the corn goes there. 60% of our export wheat goes to Mexico. Over 50% of our ag exports go to China, Canada, and Mexico. So it makes a huge difference in us trying to move ours. And then he went and took on the whole world. So that took all our markets if we don't have a trading agreement with them.
And that's, I think, one of the things, like this morning, in Canada, we're talking about, what are the other markets? But as you're saying, you're looking for other markets. You have a list of over 180 countries where there's tariffs everywhere around the world. So where are you going to look? I want to revisit the stat that you said right off the top of our conversation about potash. Is it 90% of the potash comes from Canada? Can you sort of outline that for us and what tariffs mean in this regard?
The United States imports 97% of its potash, and 90% of it comes from Canada. Well, most fertilizer plants are full of potash right now, and people put it on for this year's crop. But if this drags on, it's going to have a huge effect next year on potash. And one of the big things with raising corn is using potash. So there's a lot of acres in the United States that use potash. I don't know the numbers of the tons that come down from Canada, but it's substantial.
Where do you go, Bob? Like, who else has potash like that could fill the gap, speaking of other markets?
Oh, that's the sad thing, is a lot of people don't think about what we need to do in our future. They just do a knee-jerk reaction to try pulling something off, and there's huge ramifications to the agriculture community doing that.
What kind of response are you hoping to see moving forward from both the U.S. and Canadian governments?
Well, we've got to have, our Congress is just sitting on their hands and letting all this happen. They're the people that are supposed to be making the rules, and nothing is happening in our Congress right now. People need to be talking to their Congresses and get this straightened out. This is worldwide now that we're picking on everybody, and it's going to hurt harder than I think it is, especially in agriculture, because we just can't get these markets back that easy. From the last tariff that we we were at $7 wheat, and it went down in the $2 and $3 range. We're down in the $4 range now, and we still hadn't gotten back our markets that we lost the last time. So that was 5-6 years ago.
So our farmers here, some Manitoba farmers, are feeling cautiously optimistic around Trump tariffs. We're in a different situation, as you've outlined. What adjective would you use for how you're feeling this morning? What word would you use?
Very frustrated. I I can see why your farmers up there would be happy with what's going on, because you're going to have an opportunity to have some huge markets that we take up in the world, and good for them if they can pull it off. You know, I've been farming for quite a few 40 years, and anytime we would have a drought like this and there would be a war in another country, like our huge competitor in the Ukraine and Russia, wheat prices would be $20 a bushel. Now we can't even get $4.50 a bushel. Something's wrong with the system. There's something bigger going on than even these tariffs that we need to look into.
Bob, thank you very much for your perspective from the States with us this morning. Appreciate having you on with us.
Appreciate being on. Thank you.
That's Bob Kalin. He's Vice President of the North Dakota Farmers Union. It is now 2 minutes to 8 o'clock. Let's find out what Lauren Donnelly's working on in our news center.
Good morning, Marcy. PC leadership candidate Wally Dowdridge is fighting a decision from the province's wildlife branch. He has asked a court to restore his permits to operate tundra vehicles during polar bear season. We'll have more on that. And Keystone Province, the 204, Manitoba. What about Middle Child? Tourism Winnipeg is trying out a new moniker for the province. We'll hear how people are reacting.
All right. Thanks a lot, Lauren.
You're welcome.
Still ahead, after 8 o'clock, they've owned a winter home in Arizona for almost a decade, but now political tensions have led a Manitoba couple to put it on the market.
Before it gets any worse, we want to get out of here. And we kind of want to jump the bandwagon before everybody starts selling.
So they just put it on the market this week. They're going to join us live after 8. Also after 8 o'clock on Information Radio, it was we're going to be talking about something fun. It was a show by Kids for Kids. You're going to know the name. It's coming to Winnipeg. After 8, we're going to chat with Mini Pop Kids about their celebration tour, so stay tuned for that. Right now, high of 3 degrees in the city of Winnipeg. It's -2 currently, and traffic is pretty good. Could be a little icy underfoot. 788-3093 if you need to reach us on the commuter line. Stay right here. World Report's at 8.
Today on Q.
I'm Garvey Bailey in for Tom Power. Bob Mould, the legendary punk rock innovator, is coming through. Bob will tell you why he's giving the people what they want on his new album, and he looks back on the legacy of Husker Du.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
We're in Red Deer, Alberta for the next stop in our election roadshow. We'll hear from people in the oil and gas sector and beyond about who they're voting for and why, and what the rest of Canada doesn't get about Alberta. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. It's looking like another turbulent day on the financial markets. Already, exchanges in Asia and Europe are continuing their slides from yesterday. This is all in reaction to U.S. President Donald Trump's worldwide tariff plan, fueling fears of a global recession. CBC's business reporter Scott Peterson is following all of this. Scott, trading around the world and here on the futures markets, what are we seeing today?
We're seeing another big sell-off. The Dow Jones now, last I looked, is now over another 1,000 points to the downside. So clearly we have not seen a bottom in this market. And almost it's to the point where it's no value to talk about numbers. But we lost $2.5 trillion on equity values alone yesterday. So these markets are really crying out for clarity. They're not getting clarity, and they're asking the big questions. Are we heading to a recession? Are we in an environment of rising prices? If that's the case, that's stagflation, where you've got a slowing economy, a stalled economy, and rising prices, and that's a worst-case scenario for economists out there. Big banks as well. JP Morgan, for example, now predicting there's a 60% chance of a recession going forward. And unlike the financial collapse that we saw in 2008, the global pandemic, of course, this is all the cause of one man in the White House, Donald Trump. And so the markets have never seen anything like this before.
So, Scott, in the midst of all this, what are we expecting going forward?
Well, this is the big question mark. More financial analysts are just scratching their heads, saying they don't know what's going on. They're questioning how in touch the White House is with the reality of the markets. And Jim Cramer from CNBC calling the Rose Garden announcement on Wednesday Bush League.
over and over again, the president said, listen, it's going to be reciprocal. So you do it, we do it. And that was going to be so good. And I really believed in it. And I feel like a sucker because I am not a free trader and I do not believe in free trade. And I was just as tough, if not tougher than his people, but they screwed it up.
So as a result, we're seeing more countries, China, for example, imposing their own tariffs. And so get ready. We're going to hear more about tariffs and retaliations and tariff wars going forward.
Scott Peterson joining us in studio. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, John.
Scott mentioned China. It is unleashing a new slew of tariffs and restrictions against U.S. goods, retaliation for the tariffs imposed by Trump on Wednesday. Beijing says it will impose additional tariffs on 34% on all American goods starting next week. It's also putting new controls on some rare earth exports to the United States. And a discouraging report on the state of the economy this morning. Statistics Canada has just released its job numbers for March. The report shows tens of thousands of jobs were shed. This in contrast to the U.S., which added more than 200,000 positions. CBC's senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong has more.
Two very different economies, two very different job markets. In the U.S., jobs came in way above what economists had been expecting, and it paints the picture of a robust American economy. Unemployment is at 4.2%, very low. The question is whether this will stop the bleeding on stock markets. And the problem here is no one seems to know what to make of these numbers. So uncertainty basically overpowers any of the good news embedded in this jobs report. Here in Canada, a very different picture. Employment fell 33,000. The unemployment rate rose to 6.7%. And that weakening comes ahead of the American tariff impact. So less cushion in an already weak economy as it's facing the potential devastation of a trade war. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly is meeting with her NATO counterparts in Belgium, and she is offering them her perspective on the U.S. tariffs.
The relationship with the U.S. will never be the same. They want to do things differently, and we understand that.
Canada's government is bracing for more tariffs on lumber, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductors in the days ahead. And yesterday, it announced it would match what the U.S. is doing with auto sector tariffs and levy a fee on U.S.-made vehicles that are not compliant with the new NAFTA. But Canada is in a race to elect a prime minister, someone with a mandate to push back against U.S. President Donald Trump. And today, all the main party leaders are campaigning in Quebec, a key battleground with 78 seats. And last night, the leaders were grilled en français on a special Radio-Canada program. Rafi Boudjikanian has the details.
En parlant, 6.
Liberal leader Mark Carney grading himself a 6 out of 10 on his spoken French, promising to improve to a point.
Je viens d'Alberta.
I come from Alberta, he tells the Radio-Canada journalists interviewing him. I'm 60 years old. I can still learn.
8 à 9.
8 to 9 in 4 years.
Les Québécois, qu'est-ce qu'ils veulent?
But asked what he thinks represents Quebecers, he's less specific.
La gestion de l'offre, c'est une nation et c'est une société distincte.
Supply management, he says. Then adds, it's a nation, it's a distinct society. His Bloc Québécois rival Yves-François Blanchet picks up on that when he's in the hot seat. Nobody calls Quebec a distinct society anymore, he says. It is its own nation, recognized in the House of Commons. The Bloc has repeatedly tried to capitalize on what it calls Carney's Quebec gaffes during this campaign. So far, the Liberals have remained ahead of the Sovereignist Party in voters' intentions. The 78 seats here key to the Grits' goal of forming majority government. Last night, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre may have also provided Blanchet some ammunition.
Il y a un membre de la GRC. Il a un turban.
Saying an RCMP officer assigned to protecting his family wears a turban, and he's against the controversial Law 21, which bans public sector workers in positions of authority from wearing religious symbols. The performances on Thursday evening by each leader, a preview of the campaign's French language debate in a little less than 2 weeks. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Montreal.
Meanwhile, the Liberals are dropping Rod Loyola as a candidate in Edmonton. It comes after the National Post surfaced a video of him at a 2009 anti-NATO protest. In it, Loyola is heard praising Hezbollah and Hamas, two groups that are listed as terrorist entities in Canada. This is the second candidate the Liberals have lost since the election was called. South Korea's embattled president is out of office. The country's constitutional court has upheld Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment. Protesters in Seoul erupt in cheers as they hear the judge's unanimous verdict. Yoon was impeached by Parliament last December after trying to impose martial law. The move was met with intense resistance and plunged the nation into political turmoil. Yoon released a statement after the court decision saying he was truly sorry for failing to live up to the people's expectations. South Korea must hold a snap election within 60 days to choose a new president. A Canadian held for 12 days by U.S. Immigration says she feels lucky compared to many of the women she met in the holding cells. 35-year-old Jasmine Mooney was detained on March 3rd after trying to apply for a U.S. work visa at a Mexican border crossing.
From that moment on, no one told me anything. It was the same answer every single time. I begged, how long am I going to be in here for? Like, what is happening? And it was always the same answer. I don't know your case. I'm just doing my job.
Legal experts say Mooney's case is one example of how people are being treated at border crossings if they are not U.S. citizens. In 1 week, Canadians crossing the border will have to register with the U.S. government. Many of them, rather. It's a new rule that could affect a lot of snowbirds, but as Sophia Harris reports, it's being challenged in court.
We're like 60 to 80 years old. What are we going to do wrong in the United States?
David Fine is perplexed by the Trump administration's upcoming registration requirement for travelers. It affects Canadian snowbirds like Fine, who's wintering in Texas. Starting April 11th, certain foreign nationals staying in the U.S. for 30 days or longer, including many Canadians crossing by land, will have to fill out a lengthy registration form online. Those who don't comply could be fined, even imprisoned.
People right now are saying they're not coming back. And that shows you how upset we are.
But Fine was happy to hear that several U.S. immigration advocacy groups are suing the Trump administration to try to quash the registration requirement.
We feel strongly that this rule was issued in an improper and illegal way.
Michelle Lapointe is legal director at the American Immigration Council. She says the administration failed to seek the required public input on a rule that will affect millions of people.
Because they did not do that, what they're rolling out is a system that is arbitrary, it's confusing, it doesn't make sense.
On Tuesday, the plaintiffs will ask the court to block the registration rule before its April 11th rollout. The Department of Homeland Security didn't comment on the lawsuit, but defended the rule, saying it aligns with Trump's efforts to enhance the country's safety and security. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. If you're enjoying the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps to spread the word. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC's Information Radio. We're live downtown in Winnipeg on this Friday, last day of spring break. And it's not warm again. -2. Still got that chill in the air. Well, speaking of warmth, a Manitoba couple found it by being snowbirds. It was their dream to build a winter home in Arizona, and they did that. Now, 9 years later, the political situation in the United States has led them to sell. We're going to hear from them. They're still down south about why they felt they had to make this decision and what they're hearing from other Canadians as well in Arizona. So stay tuned. In addition, this half hour on the program, it's been 2 decades, and the mini pop kids are still going strong. We're going to hear from a 10-year-old performer who's currently on tour, and we're going to learn more about the desire for family-friendly pop songs. Stay tuned. Very Friday feeling interview. Right now, it's 8:11. We're going to go to our news center in a moment. Lauren Donnelly joins us now. She's live and filling in for Heather. Good morning, Lauren.
Good morning, Marcy. One owner of a property management company says some landlords are selling because of rising costs. The 50% rebate property owners got last year has been replaced by a credit, and landlords aren't eligible. He says the province hasn't done enough to help. We'll hear more from him. And a staple wine in Jewish holidays has been caught in the U.S.-Canada trade war. Made in New York State, Manischewitz's kosher drink drink was removed from Manitoba's liquor marts in March, one of the American alcohol products pulled from the shelves in response to U.S. tariffs. But the popular wine brand has become a Passover tradition for many Jewish families, and now they're looking for a substitute. Those stories and more coming up in your next local news at 8:30.
Thanks, Lauren.
You're welcome.
-2 in Winnipeg right now, mostly cloudy, as I've been mentioning. In Thompson, it's mostly cloudy, -13 degrees. The warm spot Sprague at -1, so we're not even cracking zero for warmth across the province this morning. To Dooley Lake's your cold spot at -17, and in Brandon, partly cloudy, -7. So for Winnipeg, we will get over zero for our daytime high, but just barely. Our high is 3. It's going to start mainly cloudy, as we've been mentioning, and we do have a 60% chance of flurries or maybe a little bit of rain like we had yesterday. Chloe's in with our commute.
Lovely commute this Friday morning. No issues that I am aware of. There is a closure, however, that might slow you down if you're traveling on Archibald this morning from Mission to Provencher. Your southbound lanes are closed. Folks traveling southbound on Archibald will be rerouted onto Mission. Northbound, you're reduced down to 1 lane. This is until April 23rd. So if that's part of your commute, do be aware of that. And if something does happen to get in your way, let us know what you're seeing. 204-788-3093.
Well, Betty and Ross Reinhardt are my first guests this last half hour of our program. They are the couple that I was mentioning who always dreamt about being snowbirds. So 9 years ago, they did it. They bought and redesigned a home in a gated community in Mesa, Arizona. But now they say the political situation in the States has led them to put that home up for sale. They're still down south. They both join us now via Zoom. Good morning, Betty. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
And hello there, Ross.
Good morning.
I don't know who wants to answer this, but I mean, how tough was this decision for you two?
Tough.
What did you? Yeah, tell me about it.
Well, we really don't want to go, but we feel like we need to because we're just getting more and more uncomfortable. Not with our friends here at all. It's when we leave our gated community that we start to get a little nervous.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have a great many American friends as well as Canadian friends. However, I'm fortunate that the hospitality situation somewhat changed here over the trade tensions. We would like to leave here on a positive note, knowing that we've had a great many good times and good friends, and keep that if we can.
So tell me a little bit more, Ross, about what you mean by, the hospitality seems to have shifted and changed. What kinds of things have you either experienced yourself or heard from other Canadians?
Right. So we've been very fortunate not having to directly experience it yet. But we have good friends that have had a couple encounters in parking lots because, of course, we have Canadian plates on our cars. So that we can be singled out relatively easy. And usually it's nothing physical or anything like that, but usually it's sharp comments, it's time for you to leave, or you can go anytime you want, north is your way home. Those are the kind of things that are coming around now.
Putting it nicely. You're putting it nicely.
Okay, so you said, Betty, he's putting it nicely, so maybe some sharper language, so something that's things that are making people feel a little bit like legit nervous.
Yeah, I do have a friend that went to the grocery store just outside our gated community twice last week, and she was stopped by someone and asked if she was Canadian, and when she said yes, they had less than nice things to say to her.
Okay. Are you the only ones have you heard from other Canadians down there that you've been there 9 years? You're talking about your community and you have, there's people down there that you know and also have homes. Are other people considering selling or have they pulled the trigger like you guys to do it?
Well, a few have pulled the trigger and have listed their homes already. Others are now talking about it and deciding when they should do it and trying to figure things out.
And others are choosing to weather the storm, hoping that it is simply a storm and it is going to eventually blow over, which it very well may. We just don't see it blowing over anytime soon. And we prefer not to spend the next 3 or 4 years of our lives waiting for it to blow over.
How quickly did this shift? Like, because at first sort of, was this right when Trump came into office? Was this around the trade war? Like, how quickly did you guys start feeling like, wow, maybe this is serious and we'll have to think of selling, to, okay, this is happening out there and we need to sell? I'm just curious, how quickly did it amp up down there, Betty?
I think shortly after the inauguration.
Well, yeah, shortly after, I guess it was.
And when the tariff talk started, right?
When all the tariff talk started and the retaliating and this and that, and the whole world started getting involved in it.
Yeah, we started to grow concerned.
We just started to grow concerned, and we started thinking, how is this going to work out while we're here in the wintertime?
So a little bit of build at the beginning of inauguration, and then when the tariffs hit. We're now seeing on YouTube photos of your beautiful home down there. I just want to talk about the fact that you this is an investment. When Manitobans, any Canadians think about being snowbirds, you've thought about this, you've dreamt about this. Oh, there you are in a beautiful golf course. I mean, what are you going to do now, Ross? I mean, obviously you were lucky enough to be able to move your property and sell it, but what are you going to do in the winter?
Well, that's just it. There's a few considerations, of course. Either buying or renting in Mexico is one of them, pursuing that warmer climate. But for now, nothing's carved in stone, but that's certainly one direction we're considering.
Yeah. Did you take a loss on your investment down there? Because you obviously did some renovations. I was looking at a space that was quite lovely and shiny and new.
Yeah, the saving grace is when we did buy this home, it was in dire need of updating. So we put a lot of work into this house on our own and made it our home.
So you didn't take a loss, you were saying there. Sorry, it just got cut off.
Well, I'm not sure if we'll take a loss or not.
We're not sure until
it sells.
Oh.
Yeah.
Of course, pardon me. I'm mixing up the fact that you put it up for sale this week, not sold it yet.
Oh, we did. We did.
Yeah.
We have it up for sale. Yeah, we haven't sold it yet. We just the listing just went live.
Yeah. What's your reaction, Ross, from your American neighbors and friends down there since you put the home up for sale?
Our American neighbors and friends are nothing but kind to us. They
don't want us to go.
There's apologies being made. For the most part, we all know each other's families. We have a great sense of security, or community rather, that we're going to sadly miss.
Did you face any pressure, Betty, from family or friends here in Canada to sell, to make your decision?
Not at all.
So it's just purely based on what's been happening?
Yeah, I mean, our friends have still come down to visit us over this winter. Others have canceled because they just didn't want to come down. They just weren't comfortable with coming down here. So it's unfortunate, and we don't want that to get even worse.
Just as a last question, Ross, could you have imagined this, given sort of the free and friendly nature of what we've had between the two countries over these years? And you've lived down there for part of your life for 9 years here.
Could never have imagined it. No. We all of our lives. I mean, we traveled back and forth freely. There's never been any grief, and here we are now. It makes you feel so uncomfortable that we have to actually pick up and go.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see you when you cross the border and get home. Thank you both very much for being with us this morning, especially to talk about something that's so personal to both of you. So thank you very much. We're grateful.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Manitobans, Betty and Ross Reinhardt, who are with us live on Zoom from down south. They put their winter home in Arizona up for sale this week.
Whether it's breaking news from around the world, across the country, or in your own hometown, it's all at your fingertips on the CBC News app. Get the top stories from where you live under the local tab, or watch video clips, live events, and the national on your smartphone or tablet. Get all the news you want, when you want it, where you want it, with the CBC News app. Download the app for free today.
8:21 the time, and next on the show, it's Friday. Let's end with something musical, shall we? It's a show for kids by kids for 2 decades. Mini Pop kids have been taking popular songs and making them family friendly. They're still at it.
Don't you want me like I want you, baby? Don't you need pose whatever you like. Turn this up and sit into a stage. I'm talking sing, dance, joke, eat, party all night. Gumbe, gumbe, hey, what's up? Oh, oh, oh. Don't you want me like I want you, baby? Don't you need me like I need you now? Sleep tomorrow, but tonight go crazy. All you gotta do is just meet me at the appetite, 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 Hey, so now you know the game. Are you ready? So I'm coming to get you, get you, get you. Hold on, I'm on my way. Yeah, 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 I'm on my way. Hold on, I'm on my way. Yeah, 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 I'm on my way.
Cute to hear the little voices singing that one, hey? You recognize that. That's Bruno Mars and Rosé and Appetite. It's just a taste, though, of what concert goers can expect to hear tomorrow night. Mini Pop Kids, that's their version of the tune. The young pop stars are going to be taking over the Burton Cummings Theatre as part of their celebration tour. To talk about the show, we have Mike Ross with us, the group's general manager. Good morning to you, Mike.
Good morning.
And I know that we may be joined by 10-year-old Maxton. So if Maxton joins live during our call, we'll just we'll welcome Maxton in. Tell me a bit about what people can expect at this show.
High energy, out of your seats, singing along, dancing to all of your favorite pop hits. We are doing our celebration tour this year. It's been 20 years of music making for mini pop kids here in Canada. And so our concert is a little bit of what you just heard, an APT, some new Bruno Mars. You've got some new Sabrina Carpenter songs. Then we're also doing some throwbacks like An Old Baby by Justin Bieber and some older songs that sort of fall under the umbrella of 20 years of music making. So it's a song where we invite our audience to be out of their seats dancing. We bring moms up on the stage. We bring dads up on the stage. It's sort of, you never know what you're going to get, but it's a very inclusive show for everybody that comes to see it.
Maxton's just joined us, 10 years old, one of the group's performers. Hi, Maxton.
Hi.
What songs do you sing?
I sing a variety of songs actually in the show. We have 2 acts. It starts off with Act 1, which is a nice part, like a few party songs and just a bunch of songs that makes everyone have a blast. And Act 2, also a lot of party songs, but Act 1 is just getting the audience to know us and we're all having the best time.
We just heard Appetite. Are you on that one?
Yeah, I'm on that one.
Yeah.
Our music video. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. What do you love about singing and performing?
About singing, I just love hearing the music and getting to make that with my mouth too. And it's just the best thing ever. And performing, I've been doing it for a very long time, since I was about 2 years old, and it's just in me and it's something I love to do all the time.
What's it like touring and having, being a mini pop?
So touring, it's a long process to come there, but touring is like really fun because I get to be with my friends and getting to perform in front of a lot of people, and it just makes me so happy.
I want to ask you, Mike, what do you hear from parents about the value of having a choice, and having family-friendly music and maybe versions of tunes that they can sing along now with their kids too, because they've been sort of changed. The lyrics are family-friendly.
Exactly. This is why we do it. 10 years ago, this wasn't such a challenge. It was more about just making music, but the objective of changing the lyrics is more important today. We have a lot of daycares, dance programs, after-school programs, even like public schools themselves that we know are using our music because everybody wants to listen to the Sabrina Carpenter and the Olivia Rodrigo and the Bruno Mars. But parents and teachers and organizers want to be able to do that very carefree. So whether you're a parent standing in the kitchen cooking dinner or a teacher teaching in the classroom, you can safely put our music on any playlist. And their kids are still getting the music of today, just in a safer version.
The show's going to feature performers actually from Winnipeg's Marquee Dance Academy. How did that collaboration come about, Mike?
So we try to incorporate local community groups in every city that we go to, whether it's a dance studio or a choir. So we find moments in the show that we feel would work in a collaborative way. And we'll send them videos ahead of time of what the choreo looks like, or if it's a choir, we'll send them sheet music ahead of time. So the teachers in their community will work with them ahead of coming to the show. They arrive on the day of, and then in a dress rehearsal, we kind of, piece it all together. But for us, we're big arts advocates. Obviously, we love what we do, and we love, sharing the love of music and art to everybody. And, as a kid, you work very hard when you take lessons. You spend a lot of hours and a lot of parents' money in classes and lessons and all that stuff. So to be able to give them an opportunity that's different than doing a competition or different than doing a music festival, but to get on stage with all the lights and the smoke and that high energy audience, it's just an opportunity that we feel that every kid should experience, especially those that are working so hard at honing in on their craft. It's a great experience for them.
What's your favorite song to sing, Maxton? You said you're on a lot of the different tracks. What's your fave?
Yeah. I'd say my favorite is probably Celebration because it's a celebration and it's more of an older song, but it's just the beat. It makes me so happy.
Can you sing a bit for us this morning? I'm putting you on the spot, but I don't know if you can sing a bit in case. Or
Totally.
Okay,
totally.
right on. You want me to count you in, or are you all ready to roll there, bud?
I'm ready.
Okay. This is Maxton, one of the Mini Pop kids. You can check him out live in Winnipeg. This is part of Celebration. It's his fave, one of his faves. Okay, go for it.
There's a party going on right here, a celebration to last throughout the years. So bring your good times and your laughter too. We gon' celebrate your party with you. Come on now.
Oh, you gotta keep going. Celebration.
Let's all celebrate and have a good time. Celebration. We gon' celebrate and have a good time.
That was awesome. I love that you did that. I didn't know if you were going to be willing or not. It's early in the morning and your voice sounds so good. That's fantastic. Just fantastic. Have fun on stage, Maxton, and I hope you enjoy the show once you get here to Winnipeg. It's tomorrow night, I know. Thank you so much for being up and being with us on Zoom and telling us about your life as a Mini Pop.
Totally. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, and good luck with the show and the tour, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks for having us this morning.
Yeah, you're very welcome. What a lovely way to end our Friday show here. Mike Ross, General Manager of Mini Pop Kids, and Maxton, cast member, Winnipeg. The show's tomorrow night. They're performing their Celebration tour. It is now time to check in with Marjorie Dalhouse, who's here to tell us about the call-in on Radio Noon. Hi.
Hi there, Marcy. Well, it is Friday, so let's do something a little bit more fun, a little bit more lighter. We're going to be asking you where your favorite place to walk or hike is, because we're going to be speaking to a Winnipegger who started walking during the pandemic, when the pandemic started in March 2020. He has not missed a single day. He has not missed a single walk, no matter the weather. Even when he's on vacation, he still walks, and he walks about 10 kilometers every day. It's absolutely amazing. So we want to hear from you. Where's your favorite place to walk? It'll be a cute little call-in that we're going to have this afternoon.
I love that. And good for him. I feel very, very lazy right now.
Don't, though. We're busy, but you know what? We should take time to, give ourselves a little bit of a break. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Marjorie.
Thanks, Marcy.
So, favorite places to walk with a great guest between 12:30 and 1 on Radio Noon for the call-in. 788-3797 to leave a message. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Lauren Donnelly in Winnipeg at 8:30. It's -3 and mostly cloudy at the Winnipeg airport. A 60% chance of flurries or rain showers this morning, clearing with a high of +3. Landlords are warning of higher rents after their education property tax bills for this year doubled. They used to get a 50% rebate on their school taxes, but this year the province is only offering a tax break for homeowners, nothing for landlords. Avram Sharak is with an association representing landlords. He says expenses are rising faster than Manitoba's 1.7% cap on rate increases. He plans to apply next year for rate hikes higher than the government's cap.
The only choice we have as property managers is to continually apply for these increases above the guideline because we're always catching up.
Finance Minister Adrian Sala maintained the government is helping small businesses. Some of the measures include a freeze on electricity rates and upcoming changes to the payroll tax. Despite the fact that measles was officially declared eradicated in 1998, health officials find themselves dealing with a number of outbreaks across the country, the largest in southwestern Ontario. Jennifer Yoon reports.
I mean, I'm terrified of needles, which doesn't help.
Chenoa Asquith never got her measles shot as a kid, but now, as a 23-year-old, she's facing her fears at a pop-up clinic in Caledonia, Ontario, getting the vaccine.
It's either get the vaccine or end up really sick in the hospital.
The region between Niagara and Windsor is the epicenter of the measles outbreak in Canada now. The province is reporting almost 90 new cases in the past week. Dr. Nin Tran is the medical officer at Southwestern Public Health.
The most effective way to safely prevent measles is through vaccination.
But convincing those who are hesitant is hard. A reality Sarah Titmus, who helps run the pop-up vaccine clinic in Caledonia, knows too well.
I think the bottom line is that we all have our own values and beliefs. And so what we do is we provide the most evidence-based information that we can so that people can make an informed decision.
Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Caledonia, Ontario.
They may not all agree on the issue of tariffs, but the 100 or so year-round residents of Northwest Angle, Minnesota, are closely watching the trade war between Canada and the U.S. Surrounded on three sides by Canada, cut off from the U.S. mainland by Lake of the Woods, the only way to get to the Angle by road is through Manitoba. Everything has to be brought in. Kelly Knight runs Prothero's Post Resort. She's worried the price of everything will go up, but she supports Canada's attempt to fight back.
I am very supportive of what Canadians and other countries are doing, and I think that the Americans need to feel the pain, like we honestly do. Like we need to be woken up to, and I'm willing to, like make it hurt a little bit so that we understand that this is not how you play nice. This is not how you cultivate good relationships.
Other local residents say they're happy to see U.S. President Donald Trump following through on his promises to make America wealthy again. PC leadership candidate Wally Dowdridge has asked a court to restore his permits to operate tundra vehicles during polar bear season. CBC's Bartley Kivitz reports.
Wally Dowdridge owns Lazy Bear Expeditions, an ecotourism company based in Churchill. In February, Manitoba's wildlife branch told him he's no longer permitted to operate 2 tundra vehicles in the Churchill Wildlife Management Area. The branch said declining polar bear numbers led to the decision. So Dowdridge filed an application with the Court of King's Bench asking for the decision to be reversed. In an affidavit, Dowdridge says he wasn't notified in advance, challenged the science behind the decision, and accused the wildlife branch of being more lenient on 2 competing ecotourism companies. Those companies and the province declined comment. Bartley Kivitz, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Finally, making something beautiful out of tragedy. That's the goal of the Voices Garbage Bag Fashion Show at the Graffiti Art Gallery tonight. Young designers take garbage bags and turn them into beautiful clothing. Garbage bags were chosen as the material because often when foster children are moved, all their belongings are placed in the bags. Taylor Sokolowski is one of the designers and a youth leader at Voices.
The inspiration for my dress was a dress that I'd gotten from a foster parent, and it was actually the first piece of clothing that I had ever gotten. So it has a sentimental value to me, and I'm just kind of glad that I'm able to showcase that.
That's Taylor Sokolowski. The show tonight is to raise awareness about youth in care. And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg.
Thanks very much, Lauren.
You're welcome.
It is coming up to the end of the show here. The commute has been cooperating all morning. It's the last day for spring break. So next week we'll return to regular traffic volumes and kiddos and school buses. So think about that on Monday morning. We are leaving you with a temperature where we've been all morning, -2 in Winnipeg with a high of 3 degrees in our forecast today. Well, let's thank the people that put together the program this week and work in our current affairs unit overall. Our show director this morning, Chloe Friesen, our technician, May McKillop, our YouTube director who's leaving us for a while, Kevin Nipatebo. Come back anytime, buddy. Thank you for your work. Our senior technician on the program is Abby Adiyemi. Our associate producers and units, Angelina Pelche, Kalkadam Mulageta, Chidi Akuma, Marshall Hodgins, Issa Kixon, and Carmen Ponto working this week on different items. Community reporter is Shanley Vidal, reporter in unit Jim Agapito. In our news department, big thanks to Lauren Donnelly, who we just heard from, as well Megan Ketchison and Aaron Broman in this morning. And producers in unit, Robin Summerfield has been working in our unit. Donna Carrero has been working on our election production coverage and our remotes. And Corey Funk's been filling in as a producer in our unit this week, as well as our Nellie Gonzalez, who is our regular show producer of our current affairs programs. Thank you to everyone who works so hard. Appreciate it. Take care, be well, Manitoba, and thank you for listening to Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We'll talk to you again on Monday. And don't forget Radio Noon and Up to Speed. More local programming throughout your day right here on CBC.